Okay, we'd like to call the meeting to order. The mayor's making his way up to the front here, but if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Hanson, would you lead us off really quick, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a hefty agenda here today. We have a quorum. We did not have a closed session, so we have nothing to report out. The first item up will be consent, and I will step aside so the mayor can take his seat.
Thank you. Thank you, Angelique. Good afternoon to everybody. I was not here for the last meeting, so I get to say for the first time, Happy New Year to everybody. And hope everyone is well. We have a busy agenda, as always today, with the focus largely being on our workshop around cannabis. But there is also a significant consent calendar, where I know that there is a lot of public testimony. I know that I just want to make a comment or two about the youth pop-up item, which we just spoke about outside. And I know that there are others who want to talk about some other items. So, Madam Clerk, are there any consent items specifically to be Number 7 to continue. Number 7 needs to be continued.
Or till, so after the workshop.
I'm sorry, not continued, but taken up after the workshop. Very good. So that would be number 7. Anything else that any member wants to talk about separately or to take off the agenda?
I have no additional requests to take off for separate discussion. Councilmember Jennings is going to recuse from item number 9.
Very, very, very good. Then why don't we launch right into the public testimony on any of the items, and then I may make a comment on the pop-ups and 1 or 2 other items.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'll just go ahead and move the consent calendar, and then...
Absent item 7.
Correct.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 20 speakers on the consent calendar. The first is Khalil Ferguson on 4 and 7. The second is Tiffany Sharp on item 7.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and City Council. With regards to number 7, we just wanted to see that it was viewed after we went over the workshop. Basically, we feel that the workshop should come first, and upon the passing of that, then we can consider the ordinance being passed as well, to not be counterintuitive. So you guys already took care of that. But with regards to number 4, the California Urban Partnership, we are in favor of the city auditor, the position governing the the Office of Cannabis Management. However, we feel like it's very reactive and not preventative. So what we would also like to see is an equity manager within the Office of the Cannabis Management to see the day-to-day motions, the day-to-day operations, and to ensure the core policy and practices are followed on a day-to-day basis, essentially. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tiffany Sharp on item 7, then Maria Melgoza on item 8, and Nuria Rubio on 8.
I'm actually item 7 and 20 as well.
No, 20 is later,
Oh,
so we're only voting on consent.
Just in regards to item 7, we're talking about the amendment to the ordinance. We're in favor of that, particularly the section 5, 150, 350 regarding the lottery system. I think if council looks at other jurisdictions that have implemented lottery systems, they're significantly flawed, and so we would advocate for public discussion and workshops surrounding that before or during the process of amending the section regarding the lottery procedure. Thank you.
Next speaker is Maria Melgoza on item 8, Nuri Rubio on item 8.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm here to speak about the emergency panic button on the hotels here in Sacramento. I really support that because what it happens to me and what I see all my coworkers. That is very important for us to feel secure and safe, because what it happens almost every day to all of the ladies or people who works on this industry. Something it happens to me, and when they told me about this button, I really get excited because I think this thing it will work really, really good on us. I faint one time on the room, and I start feeling dizzy. And the first thing I think it was open the door because I had the door closed. I thought at least I'm gonna open the door, but I thought it's going away. But on my way out to the door, I pass out, I faint. And when they told me about this button, it came to me right away. If I had that, I would call them, and they would notice something happened to me. But I don't have nothing until I wake up myself there. And to my friend, one day I was working on this floor, and I had the custom to, if I see some of the coworkers on that floor, I go and see who is. I knock the door. I knocked the door on her, and I came in because she didn't open, but I have a key.
Thank you for your
master
comments. Your
key.
time is complete. Thank you for your comments.
Hold on. We have a 2-minute
Okay.
time, and I'm sorry, your story is very important to us, especially since you've suffered. But I would be happy to talk to you, for example, because I would like to hear the rest of the story. But we have to get through the
Okay.
rest of the
Yes.
public testimony. Okay, and in fact, maybe I can ask my staff right now, is Kelly or Jacob here? I want to make sure that we know exactly what happened to you, because
Okay.
it reinforces exactly why this is so important. Okay?
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you so much. and
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Next speaker is Nuri Rubio on item 8, and then Chet Hewitt on item 9.
Good afternoon. My name's Neri Rubio. I'm an organizer with Unite Here Local 49. And as Maria said, a lot of housekeepers that we represent actually face insulting and inappropriate treatments from our guests, as well as safety issues. As a matter of fact, today, as I visited one of our shops that we represent, there was an incident where one of the housekeepers encountered a situation such as walking into the room and encountering a guest who was undressed. There has been other situations where our housekeepers go in and clean the rooms and they encounter guests who offer them money or try to find out where they live. We are here in support of the ordinance relating to the hotel worker protection. We absolutely support the requirement of the panic buttons. We also hope that in the future, the ordinance can be strengthened by including language requiring the guest notification. If the guests are aware that our housekeepers have been issued panic buttons, it may prevent some of these guests from acting inappropriately in the first place. We would like to thank Vice Mayor Guerra for bringing this forward of this important issue. We urge the council's full support. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chet Hewitt on item 9, then Pastor Les Simmons on item 9.
Kind of switch roles, and I'll speak first and then he'll speak. But I'd like to just say, to the mayor and to the city council, first, this is a great day celebrating the accomplishment of last year's pop-up events, and then today on the consent calendar for the years to come for pop-up events. I'd also like to ask those that are here in support of the pop-up events, some of the young folks that are here, organizational leaders, if you could stand, if you're in the audience, if you could stand right now just as a recognition. I'd like to just give you all a hand clap as well, too. There are over 23 organizations citywide that have come together to collaborate on creating these pop-up events with our young folks for Friday and Saturday. Last year was a huge year, powerful year. These holiday season was powerful, and seeing how the collaboratives came together, going down to Art Mall, creating other spaces to really create a place of belonging. A lot of us have said and heard these words, where do we belong? Where do we find community? community. These pop-up events have created the space of belonging, the space where resources, services are offered, opportunity is offered, skill sets are delivered. Young folks are leading these programs, programming these programs, and today is a day to celebrate this year and what the city of Sacramento, what you all, what the city council and our mayor are pushing forward to empower us to continue to impact lives and come together as Sacramentans. So we like to thank you. I like to thank you for supporting the pop-up events. Chet Hewitt.
Big hand.
Next speaker
It
is
is an
Chet Hewitt
historic
and then
day.
Robert
And
Copeland.
Councilmember Carr, Councilmember Jennings, Guerra, Chenier, Mayor Steinberg, Councilmember Hanson, Harris, Warren, Ashby. I want to thank you all individually. That's why I took the time to call all of your names, for making the promise of Measure U a reality here in Sacramento, particularly as it relates to our young people. Now, we come down and sometimes we fuss and we argue with you and we get a little kind of full of energy sometimes, but today we're gonna come down with lots of smiles and lots of thank you, because when you do something extraordinary, you should hear that from the community as well. 450 pop-up events over the last year, 29,000 attendees to those particular events. You will graduate your first cohort of young people who are employed by those sites doing the planning and engagement, 48 of them. And a new cohort starts in a couple of weeks. They will go on for additional job training and move into the labor market. This is what a great city does when it says that it's committed to its young people and is prepared to operate on that as well. We're all here in support of the resolution to support pop-ups, going forward. A great day. Looking forward to more opportunities to work together, an extraordinary partnership. I also want to thank, before I leave this podium, I want to thank the city manager, Howard Chan. All right? I want to thank Howard. All right? Because he and I have fussed and went back and forth about a number of things, but we've gotten to an excellent result, and you two deserve a lot of credit and a lot of public acknowledgement for doing the extraordinary thing, and that is to find a way to get to yes. Thank you.
Next speaker is Robert Copeland on item 10, 11, and 12, then Kevin Carter on item 10 and 11.
Your work has been impeccable for the community. Our youth is very deserving of this. Thank you, brother.
I want to speak on 10, 11 as the same issue. I think it's good for now, but we can do better. Real rent control, it just cause eviction ballot measure. Because I belong to the Sacramento team, we're not happy with the way the city is conducting their no outreach with the stakeholders like the tenants union, DSA, ACE. I haven't seen any meetings with any of our organizations. And I do believe one of our city councilmen had a run-in with some of our people Saturday. So we're not happy with the way Sacramento City Council conduct business. It may be good for this year, but we want real rent control and just cause eviction. And as far as number 12, the shelter crisis, I hope you do better this time than you did last time. Shelter is housing, not shelters that you want. And as far as the City Council District 4, Capitol Park Hotel, I heard that's a deplorable condition. No heat, no water, elevators going down all the time. Fix the problem at the Capitol Park Hotel. Get on the ball and do your job. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kevin Carter on item 10 and 11, then Ron Javor on item 12.
Yes, my name is Brother Kevin Carter, which you all know. I'm also a member of the Poor People's Campaign, a call for a more national moral revival. The revival is about the immoral things that are happening across this state and across this nation, where 140 million people live in poverty, and 45% of those people are working. But what are we doing to make the difference that they have a right to live in housing? The same thing is happening in one of the most wealthiest cities right here in Northern California, San Francisco. I was there December 11th, leading the march from the City Hall to Glide Memorial Church, where we talk about to do more. When will you do more, or are you going to follow the lead of San Francisco and have over 1,000 or more people on the streets that are homeless, including men, women, and children? When will you do more to change the narrative from there and stop following their lead and have your own lead when it comes to housing? Mothers for Housing just fought the biggest fight for housing. The same as rent control. All of it goes together. There's an intersection. But when will you meet the intersection? When will you stop kicking the can down the road and say, I'm going to think like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The urgency of now is now. The time that is always right is right now. I'm not angry, I'm passionate because I'm a living moral testimony throughout this whole entire state and even in Washington, D.C. to see what's happening today.
Our next speaker is Ron Javor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm here to speak in favor, I guess it's on, in favor of item 12, which is the shelter emergency ordinance. When I was here about 2 months ago, the council was celebrating the national attention that RT received in a positive way for what it's done. And it reminded me that, and can I have this little thing on now, please?
The audio visual. Thank you.
Is it, there we go. I don't know whether anybody out there can read it. Just short of 11 years ago, 2 weeks and less than 11 years ago, Sacramento made national attention on the Oprah show because of the homeless situation at Blue Diamond. And that was, as the article says, this is a B article, you know, it was quite negative, derisive. And what did we do about it at that point? We helped tear down the camp. And basically there were some promises of something that could be done. I'm gonna have to talk faster. A week or so later, the mayor said that he was willing to work to try to get some better shelter for some of the homeless people. We made Atlantic a couple months later. Same story. Basically Atlantic was pointing out that nothing much was happening except for promises. And then about a year after that, there was a march that was led by a number of political as well as homeless people, many of whom you've seen. And I know I'm running out of time. One of the participants was the then President Pro Tem of the State Senate. And he spoke at the end, and in my last 10 seconds, I just want to say what he said 10 years ago, that basically having a safe ground, a safe place to stay, this is a human rights issue, and it begins with safe ground.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete. Our next speaker is Maitra.
I remember what I said, Ron. Thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker is Maitra Bozo-Garden, and then Rosie Barraza, also on item 12.
Thought it was 3 minutes, so I'm going to shorten it. Hi, my name is Mitra Bazorg-Zadigan, and I'm a resident of East Sacramento. I'm not affiliated with an organization or a nonprofit. I'm just a resident. I started helping Jim Wilson, a homeless man, a year ago when I found out he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and still living on the street. When we started talking about a place to live and getting him off the streets, Jim was the one that told me about Compassion Village, as he had actually helped build a few of the first tiny homes years ago. I contacted Tammy with E49 per Jim's guidance and was able to get him off the streets and into a tiny home as of January last year. Jim's cancer spread significantly, almost to the point where they weren't able to do the surgery. As you can see, he had his entire tongue removed and a total laryngectomy, meaning that he's never going to be able to speak again. What's so amazing about this man is that he was never late to an appointment, never skipped treatment, and never complained once. He's a survivor who beat cancer and also got himself off the streets. I'm here to share Jim's story because he's one of the people in Compassion Village that received a letter stating that they would not be able to continue his lease due to code and building issues that the city of Sacramento had not yet put in place for tiny homes on wheels, effective January 31st. This guy, who completely changed his life around, has nowhere to go as of January 31st. If there was another housing option I could find for Jim, I would jump on it, but there isn't. The wait lists are 1 to 2 years long, so what is he supposed to do? Pack up, go back living on the street and at the Starbucks on H and Elvis, sleeping at the Fremont Church? Medically, he can't do that. And because he finally got off the streets, he doesn't deserve to do that. I'm literally here begging all of you to make an exception and designate Compassion Village as temporary housing and/or emergency shelter and allow Jim and the rest of the residents to stay there. These facilities are already built. Mr. Steinberg, you have all the resources in this city. And if we're gonna just give that away, I'm gonna leave my business card, and please at least help me find a place for Jim.
We're gonna, please stop. Don't stop to stop. What you're saying is so compelling, I think, to me and to all of us, that you have survived, obviously, a traumatic medical experience, and you're here and strong, and that you were on the street and now you're not, and that this is the situation you face. We're going to dive right into this breach here. We have to. So, City Manager, who can we, right now, Chris Conlon, right there. But Mr. Conlon, Assistant City Manager, I'd like a report back later today, please, about what we can do to prevent this from occurring, because he's currently housed, correct?
He's currently housed. The facilities are built already. There's just a new code. I believe someone's going to speak to it later. I don't know. I'm not part of all that.
We won't get into the details
But we just don't want him to end up back on the street.
Of course. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you. Hang in there, sir. Okay.
Next speaker is
I'm
Rosie
sorry,
Barraza
Mayor.
and Steve Swindell.
Mayor, if I could, before
Yes,
this next
Angelique,
speaker,
please.
I'd just like to say one thing about the last speaker and about Compassion Village. I have visited Compassion Village myself twice and helped them with some of their startup dollars. It is not true that we have changed an ordinance to make that site more difficult. We have not changed any ordinance to make anything different about what has happened there. In fact, the emergency ordinance that we're adopting today will allow us to replicate programs like that. So I'm more than happy to go talk with the city staff that we sent out there as well.
Please.
But it is not true that we have made a change in an ordinance that now makes it illegal to do what Compassion Village was already doing. And the ordinance that, Mayor, you have brought forward today actually is going to make it easier. That is the point of it. That's why it's an emergency ordinance, for us to be able to move forward with more models like Compassion Village. I just want that to be clear to everybody that's in the room.
If the story that we heard is true, which I very much assume that it is, the bottom line here is this gentleman cannot lose his housing. That's all. So let's just take care of that today, okay? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosie. I, like others, have come here today to petition and plead our case with you guys about shutting down the Compassion Village. I came to the village from a condition of homelessness. I was experiencing physical and mental health issues from A to Z. Upon arrival and acceptance to the residents on day one, I began to feel a feeling of joy. As my prayers had been answered, I finally have been able to exhale and find comfort and safety in a tiny home. The village provided me. It has.
Hang in there.
I'm sorry.
Take your time. Stop the clock for 10 seconds.
It has been giving me the stability that I need. It provided me more than I could have imagined. The opportunity to address my health issues, the opportunity to have my family together and build on our relationships and love for one another. The blessing of building relationships with the fellow residents. I am active in the village and the church with my responsibilities to feed the community with emphasis on the homeless. Your decision today concerning the closing of the village may be one of the most vital decisions you guys will ever make. Counselors, search in your hearts and you'll discover that it is not so much about the tiny homes as it is about the people in them. I, like many of the residents, have been by the grace of God given new lives because of the Compassion Village. My prayer is that your decision will not take, but give us an alternative home to stay and extend our stay at the village with this issue that can be please resolved. I just want to say that Since then, I haven't missed none of my doctor's appointments. I'm stable from taking 15 medicines of I don't know what sometimes to just the medicines that I need. I'm able to keep my blood counts right.
Thank you for your comments. Your time
I'm
is
just
complete.
grateful. Please don't take the opportunity away from me to move forward in my life.
Thank you.
I guess at some point in this meeting, we ought to get some sort of a update on what's happening with Compassion Village. Because,
The next speaker is Steve Swindell, then Tammy Vallejo, then Rebecca Sandoval.
My name's Steve Swindle. I'm an East Sacramento resident. I live in a very expensive house with a small footprint, and I have a good life. But I helped build 4 of these tiny homes for the homeless, and they're nice houses. I have seen the people, and you have seen the people who have gotten a residence there. Their lives have dramatically improved as a result of having housing. Housing first works. I know there are a lot of things going on, and some of the things it seems some people have misunderstood and are kind of fearful of what may happen. But as you move to create more housing for the homeless, keep in mind what we already have. Compassion Village works. It's been very good for the people that live there. It's been very good for the people that have volunteered to help build the homes. Thank you very much. And if you could give 50 seconds of extra time to another speaker, I don't need it.
Doesn't work that way, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Tammy Vallejo?
Hi, so my name's Tammy Vallejo. I'm actually the founder and CEO of E49 and Compassion Village. Let me give you a little bit of a recap. So when we first started, we started the village as tiny homes on wheels on the back of underutilized church properties. Mayor, you may remember when you encouraged churches to build tiny homes. So that's what we did.
I did.
Unfortunately, over the years, we have never had a code that allowed us to stay. Tiny homes on wheels are currently not coded anywhere in the building code to be okay. And so what has happened is we were given sort of a we won't look by city planning. We've worked with city planning to get a code. We made recommendations in partnership with SHRA when we did the RFI with them. Those things actually just never came to council. And so as January 1 hit, Appendix Q was added to the building code, the residential building code, which now defines tiny homes as having to be on the ground and built as a factory-built house with electricity and plumbing. There still is no code for tiny homes on wheels. And even when the emergency shelter crisis was put in, we were never given a permit in order to continue. And so last week, we received, first of all, we knew the code was coming, but last week the city came out, the hazardous building division, and told us that they were going to shut us down, that they did not know that anything existed and that there was no code, which is true, and there's no planning permit that we have ever been granted. We have attempted, Mayor, I've attempted to meet with you multiple times. We've never been able to get through the doors. I sent Jacob an email just last week when this happened, and we were still never granted a meeting. We're just asking to be part of the solution. We are a temporary to permanent solution. We do not ask our residents to leave. We are not a shelter version, which I assume is why we're not in the conversation right now. But I'm encouraging you to consider us as one of the things that you would assist
for your comments.
with
Your
moving
time
forward.
is complete.
I want to continue this conversation for a moment because this is the person who is in charge, who's giving us the facts here. So this is coming to our attention in a public way, which is absolutely appropriate. The city manager is actually going to step off the dais for a minute and to determine what the status is of the Compassion Village project. And certainly, I don't want to prejudge it, but it wouldn't be right to give people little or no notice and shut down a housing complex, even if it was not perfectly aligned with our existing code, without discussion, notice, and certainly helping people find alternatives. So we're gonna.
So we did give notice, and we are helping people find alternatives.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. So I'm just saying that we are. You come up here appropriately. You've sounded the alarm. We're going to take it seriously, and we're going to make sure that nobody finds themselves out of this project without more,
Thank you.
at least discussion and consideration, okay?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Next speaker is Rebecca Sandoval, then Brad Velasquez, then Jenna Abbott.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. I am from the Northgate Gardenland, South Natomas area, and this area is made up of many families that have been there for generations. We are a community that takes care of our loved ones. Many of us have taken in our loved ones when they have fallen on hard times. We have great compassion for the homeless. The Railroad Drive Triage Shelter was in our neighborhood, and we never complain. Now we are being asked to accept a shelter down the other end of Northgate Boulevard from one of our elementary schools. As you know, in California, schools rank 47th in terms of per pupil spending, and our schools are having to implement trauma-based learning. And our district provides education for 2,000 homeless students. This includes breakfast and lunch. The lot proposed off of Northgate Boulevard is currently zoned R3, which allows for duplexes up to multifamily. It allows for community markets, community gardens. Temporary residential shelter is a conditional use. But conditional uses also includes child care centers, school K through 12. So shelters are not allowed by right, but do require special conditional approval. My concern with this shelter is that it will be 50 cabins without heating, air conditioning. They will have to use communal bathroom, and this is being proposed as something that is good for our community at a cost of $3.4 million, which is going to take some time to build. That money needs to be spent now. People are cold now. People are without shelter now. And I want to tell you, as a school board member, it's very distressing when I have to call my school police department to go and assist some of our children because somebody is urinating by the school. Our children need to be safe, and that includes our homeless children. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Velasquez, then Jenna Abbott.
I'm a resident at Compassion Village, and I've been living there for about 2.5 years, January. And it's a great place. You know, I get good neighbors. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, so again, our city manager and our housing authority director, Lachelle Dozier, are both out now intervening in real time here. Again, the directive is we are not going to allow anybody who is currently housed to be dispossessed and be unhoused here. That's not what we do. So we have to figure out what the situation is, what the code issue is, what some of the circumstances are. And it's not to say that there doesn't have to be transition in all the right ways, but I'm just telling you that we're going to work it out so that nobody finds themselves without a roof over their head is currently in that project to the best that we can, all right? We're working on it. Lachelle Dozier, expert. Howard Chan, city manager and expert. Best people are out there. We'll get a report back before the end of the meeting, and we will go from there, okay?
Next speaker is Jenna Abbott, and then Jimmy Love was this final speaker on this item.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is Jenna Abbott, and I'm currently the executive director of the River District. I'm here in support of item 12 on the consent calendar. There is no doubt in my mind that we have a homeless crisis. I see it every single day in the River District. I started this job in August, and in early September, I drove through the district on a nice summer evening. I counted over 500 people on the street, camping in tents on the street before I stopped. This is in my tiny little district bounded by Jaboom, the river, 28th, and CRD Street. They were everywhere. The River District is being crushed. Commerce is being impacted. My business owners are struggling to witness the trauma that they see every day on the streets. They watch people, they have watched rapes, they have watched violent encounters, they have watched people who are very clearly mentally ill and not in control of themselves hurt themselves. This is impacting their ability. This is a crisis. And I urge you to please do something. The River District needs your help, and we need your action. And we stand ready to help you whatever way we can. My 17-member board is all in on this. So please, you have my 100% support, and you can't act fast enough. We have to do this quickly as we can, and as efficiently as we can, and as compassionately as we can. But we also have to understand that the impact on business is real. It is impacting our commerce here in Sacramento. Thank you very much.
Jimmy Love is our final speaker on item 12 and the consent calendar.
Good afternoon, Council. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for taking this on your agenda. Mayor, I never met you, and I've seen you on TV, and I applaud you and the work that you're already doing here in Sacramento, not only on help for the homeless, but rent control and all the rest of those things. So I want to applaud you for your decision already to address this issue with the Compassion Village. I'm also a resident there, and I've been there in just a short period of time. The village has allowed me to overcome some issues in my life and given me a new destination and a new destiny to help out at the village as well as help the homeless out there. The climate condition is getting worse before it gets better. I'm hoping that here, the template with Compassion Village is going to open the door for other avenues for these villages to be, tiny homes to be placed. Not much left to be said. I already can see that you've made up your mind that you're going to tackle this thing with urgency. And if you do so, then that would indeed rest on the hearts of us that we won't be displaced. So my immediate and initial thought was that you guys were going to house us. And I know you guys got some nice homes. I'd like to rent one, but at the same time, I know that now I'm secure that you guys are going to help us to maintain our residency there and build on that. And hopefully down the line, we'll be able to come in here as a group and be able to show you what the Lord has done for us and what He's done on your behalf to help us out in that situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is the public testimony. Thank you. It's obviously very valuable to all of us up here, and we will report back before the end of the meeting here on the item that we just heard from many people on. All right, I want to hear from the members on consent calendar items. I'll save myself for last and turn it over to Vice Mayor Guerra.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First, there's a number of items here. Number one, I do want to thank all our hotel workers who came out here today and testified. They came to Law and Legislation Committee, and many of them told some very crushing stories. So for them, I want to thank them. Muchas gracias para todos los trabajadores que llegaron aquí a dar su presentación y también los que llegaron la última vez en la audiencia de nuestro comité y dieron su cuento que era muy a veces doloroso para platicar. I also want to thank Teresa from the Hotel Association here in Sacramento because they stepped up on this item here today, not only when we looked at first drafting this ordinance for the larger hotels, but they said that the industry in its entirety and wanted a more aggressive ordinance, said we should have a higher standard for all our hotels in the area. So I think our Hotel Association and our owners also deserve a lot of recognition for that. This is an important issue to provide protection as our hospitality grows and more people come to Sacramento. We also want our hotel workers to be safe. Also, I want to thank all the youth that are out here today on this item to help and continue our evening programming and our pop-ups to provide safe places. And I think we should give them a big round of applause out here for all our youth that are advocating. They're taking leadership on. I even saw some of our folks from the village who are looking at trying to start up a pop-up in Fruit Ridge Manor, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with them to find a safe place for for the youth on Saturday nights, and particularly when some of their parents may be working in the evenings at these hotels as well. So, and lastly, on this item, glad to move the item, Mr. Mayor, and wanted to end by saying thank you for your leadership on this issue of the emergency shelter declaration, shelter crisis declaration, and the ordinance to look for flexibility. As your representative on the League of Cities this last November, I represented our city and advocated now as part of the League of Cities of all the cities of California. This exact same ordinance will be one of their priorities for this year's legislative action at the state capitol, advocating for that flexibility for the state laws and ordinances. So I wanted to thank you for that. We've got more work to do. I know this will help in areas where we don't have public land or land that is prepared for shelters, and give us more options. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor Guerra. Councilmember Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I first want to thank Vice Mayor Guerra for working on the hotel issue. I know that it's really important. I've seen this come through the process, and with partners from Unite Here and your work, Mr. Guerra, I just want to say it's going to make a big difference. Working together last year with Councilmember Jennings and Guerra, we asked that the city help fund Sacramento Self-Help Housing to assist renters who are in distress and needed help getting guidance about their rights. So I'm very happy to see the city manager place on the agenda funding for Sacramento Self-Help Housing to help fund the Renter Assistance Hotline and to support the work that we did around the Tenant Protection Relief Act, which capped rents and stopped unfair evictions. And that has been a very effective ordinance to date. Also tonight we are conforming our law, which passed before the state law, which had a slightly lower percentage and a different set of standards. But that will also provide renters with additional protections. Lastly, I just want to address the shelter crisis issue, and I know the city attorney's not here. I wanted to ask her a question in relation to Compassion Village. I don't know if somebody else from the city attorney's office. Oh, there she is. So I was looking out there for you. Yeah, I figured. Before we vote, Madam City Attorney, on the shelter crisis declaration, as I understand it, it gives the city staff authority under state law to create alternative standards for what is allowed to be housing. And this particular project seems to me to be the exact kind of alternative housing that the state had in mind when they gave us the authority to declare this crisis. Is that indeed true? And we just need to ensure that our rules and regulations that are developed under the shelter crisis capture the mobile tiny homes, which may not be governed yet under state law?
You're correct, Council Member. That does provide a great deal of relaxation of building code requirements so that the city can pursue, very similar to the project that the public members were talking about today, and actually make those legal while the shelter crisis is in place.
Thank you. So, Mayor, I just want to join your call, along with what I heard from Councilmember Ashby, that we cease enforcement action from the Community Development Department in relation to Compassion Village while we draft these ordinances that allow for Compassion Village and projects like it, whether it be the Sacramento First Step Communities Project or something with Palette, that we continue to support these innovative forms of getting people sheltered and not create barriers to enforcement until we've completed those regulations.
Thank you. I'll speak to it in just a moment again. Thank you, Councilmember Hanson. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I have similar comments. First, Vice Mayor Guerra, you know, the idea of a panic button is a simple but profound idea, and if it saves one hotel worker from a medical issue or any kind of physical abuse, it's well worth your efforts, and I congratulate you also for bringing that first to law and ledge and now through council. Good work. You know, as far as the shelter crisis declaration, you don't have to go any farther than the River District to understand the depth of the crisis that we have with homelessness in Sacramento. It is a huge issue that we need to address. And as evidenced by E49, we need to be creative in our approach. We brought pallet shelters to City Hall for demonstration. Way back when, I did another tiny home micro pads. You might remember that from 2 years ago. Also, Northern California Construction Training brought a prototype to City Hall just a couple of weeks ago. We do have solutions, but we have to be very creative about how we implement them. But at this point, we need any and all solutions to get people out of the weather and get them on the road to recovery. So I thank you, Matra, for bringing your friend here. It drives the point home. You know, people need shelter. We have great programs coming online, like Joshua's House, a homeless hospice that will happen in the River District, a project that I'm very proud of. You know, other projects that I've proposed, like the Tiny Home Village, the First Step community on Northgate, which I think has tremendous potential. In that regard, I would like to say that there is opposition to it, and part of this will be discussed at the Twin Rivers Unified School District meeting this evening, and I will be attending and addressing the board and some of the concerns that have been raised by one of their trustees. You know, the time has come that we really need to be creative and get people indoors. We have been talking about this for a long time, and certainly code issues have to be paid attention to, but sometimes you have to stretch. We are in crisis, and that is really the basis of declaring this shelter crisis so that we can take a more creative approach. I think that's all I've got to say, Mayor. One more thing. On pop-ups, I want to thank you personally for bringing the idea and then getting it to fruition. To Chet Hewitt and Richard Dana, to you both also, thank you. You know, Mayor, we tussled a little bit over Northgate, but I can tell you this, that pop-ups have been tremendously successful at Stanford Settlement. I talked to Julie Roten last evening. She has 50 kids coming every week, and they will come into the fold of Stanford Settlement and find that they have a facility there that they can make up use of in perpetuity. So you help bolster the population at Stanford Settlement. It's been nothing but good. I just wanted to thank everybody. You know, supporting our youth in this way leads to great outcomes. Thank you.
Our tussle, by the way, was temporary.
That's right. We've mended our fences. We're actually really good friends.
Councilmember Ashby.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a couple things. First of all, I wanted to tell Councilmember Guerra, great job on the panic button. When I heard about you and Supervisor Cerna, I believe champions of the county, right? It's fantastic, and I'm really proud of the advocates who came out today. It's hard to be a spokesperson on issues like that. Put yourself out there. And I agree, it would be great to see the city take the next step. I'm sure you're planning on championing that. Count me as your first vote and support to add that piece. I do think it would be really helpful if guests knew that staff had panic buttons. I think that too would help alleviate issues. I think people, if they knew there could be the problem of a panic button being pressed, they might be less likely to do things. So Councilmember Garrett, great work. Proud to support that today and to support you taking the next step on that, which I'm sure you are more than happy to do. I also wanted to comment on the pop-ups, which I think are a fantastic example of what the city can do when we have these resources. So Measure U made it possible, and this is the kind of product I'd like to see us spend our money on, but I also like having the flexibility to choose which one is working and where we should put it, because we have moved them around a lot and we've chosen different things in different ways that they work, and I think that's important too, but it's a great strategy for the city to have in play. And then lastly, Mayor, I think you're gonna make some comments on this, but I wanna talk just a second about Compassion Village, because I don't want anybody who's watching this or anybody who's experiencing this or in the room to walk away thinking that the city went out and did enforcement at Compassion Village. We did not. No one from the city went out with enforcement at Compassion Village. There may be some dispute here, but so I visited Compassion Village. I spoke on December 31st. I reached out to Dan Axtell, who's the original person who started Compassion Village before E49 took it over. I asked if they needed my help. I asked if they were planning on closing. I asked if they needed somebody to come out and assist for them, and I have been in contact with him ever since. But what matters most is that there are people, at least 12 to 15 people, still living in the Compassion Village homes. Lachelle Dozier, the executive director of SHRA, at the mayor's direction today, and our city manager and our city attorney are now all in conversations about how we can prevent those folks from having a gap in service in terms of a roof over their heads. The ordinance on the agenda today is actually thanks in part to E49 showing us what is possible. So now that we know that we can do that, and the mayor has been here long enough to secure the funding and convince the state that this is a way that we can appropriately go, and Councilmembers Harris and Hansen have both brought forward models that would work and put examples out in front of City Hall, we have a real opportunity to do this. So we're not moving we're moving forward. We're moving in the right direction to do more of this. And the E49 site is one of the places that we're looking at. We're talking about a model very similar to that. And even Steve Waters, who's here today, who's been working on a safe ground model like this for as long as I can remember, is more than willing to step in and also help with this. So I just want to say we're going to do everything we can. And Mayor, you have my commitment too to help with this, with whatever contacts I have and my relationships there with Dan Extel and Tammy and E49 and everyone else involved in this, which, you know, E49, if you're wondering what we're even talking about, Compassion Village is the idea that churches, including my own, paid for and built a shelter and then put it on the site of another church location. So Adventure Church is my church. I see Robin Moore here. She led that project for my church. My church raised the money. They built the shelter. They chose the individual. That individual lives in that shelter at this site. That's what Compassion Village is. It's on the site of a church that has showers and bathrooms and a kitchen, but people live in their own individual cabin. And so when they need to use the restroom or the kitchen or wash clothes, they go inside the church where those things are made available to them. It is a very good model that is working. It's not for everyone. It's not perfect. It's not amazing. It's not ideal, but it is better, as you have heard from the people who live there, than the situations that they were in before. And it is also what we are trying to replicate and increase. And that is what is on the agenda today. And we're not going to let 12 or 15 people who are in that situation now fall out of that situation as we try to progress to getting hundreds of people off the street and into that situation. So, Mayor, that's my background on it with what I know.
Very
I'm here to
helpful.
help.
I will, thank you. I shall reiterate it in just a second, but Councilmember Carr.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to Councilmember Guerra for shepherding the panic buttons. I talked to Teresa at the Hotel Association today, and some of the people who are hotel workers, and they're all in favor of the panic buttons. My concern when I talked to them, though, was how does it work? And how can a panic button determine which floor a hotel worker is on? Because GPS really doesn't tell you altitude or elevation. It just tells you the location. And there are several obstacles technically that have to be overcome, and that's just one of them. To be able to identify the floor. It can't tell you if you're on the first floor or the 7th floor. There are some things technically that can be done to overcome that, like putting receivers in each room, so when a person hits the panic button, the operator downstairs will be able to say they're in room 703, as opposed to room 203, and then send help immediately. So it could provide a false sense of security, just like a camera system that's not being monitored might provide a false sense of security. But the ordinance is written in such a way, Councilmember Guerra, that will allow the hotel and the workers to work together to come up with a solution to these problems. It doesn't specify a technical implementation technique. So I would urge the workers to make sure that whatever technique or technology is used in your hotel, that it does provide some real security, that you can be assured when you push the button that help will come in a real time fashion. Secondly, I too want to applaud the people who showed up for the pop-ups. The pop-ups are only one in a wide array of activities that the council is supporting to support our young people. Hot spots in the evening, summer night lights, a whole array of programs, after-school programs, fourth art programs, just a whole array of programs. The city is investing a tremendous amount in our young people and will continue to do so. And finally, Mayor, I'd like to thank you for shepherding this proposal to adjust the code so that we can bring some of these projects to scale. We've had solutions before, but we've never found solutions that brings it to scale, where you can get thousands of people off the street at one time. It's easy for us to take an individual homeless person and find a solution to their problem. But what about the 5,000 other homeless people that are out there? Well, it's going to take a wide array of solutions to address that as well. And certainly these cabins and pop-up cabins and things that we can build in a hurry to get people off the street are needed. And the ordinance that we're about to pass tonight will allow us to relax some of the electrical heating standards so we can get people in off the street. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Carr. Just a couple final comments on a few of the items. One that has not been mentioned that I just wanted to note here publicly is the establishment of the Cannabis Compliance Auditor in the Office of the Auditor. We're going to have the cannabis workshop separate from this, but this is a very significant item. For any concerns raised about making sure that we do this new cannabis business completely above board, I think it is very important that we have a check and balance in the city auditor's office, and not just to give a retrospective look a year after a red flag may have been risen, but to actually be day to day, week to week, to be able to provide that oversight that will ensure that we help our good, legal, legitimate businesses, our core businesses, the start that they need, while making sure that there isn't anything that could constitute wrongdoing going on at the same time. It's a safeguard, it's appropriate, it's transparency, and it is a big deal. I want to thank Councilmember Guerra as well for great leadership on this hotel worker issue. You know, these are some of the, it's not small, but discrete things that we do that actually save lives and protect people. What's worse than being vulnerable as a worker in a hotel in that kind of a situation, that kind of setting that too often arises? And your measure really took a lot of work, and I'm very appreciative. On the pop-up issue, congrats to everybody. This is evidence of what we can do together, and it is the promise of Measure U, but only the beginning of the promise. Because we have a lot more work to do. On the homeless issue, first of all, and I just want to repeat what Councilmember Ashby said, there's a lot of detail to be worked out about the particular project and questions to be asked, but here is the guarantee from the dais tonight, to this afternoon. No one will be displaced. No one will be displaced, period. We have that commitment here. So as there may have to be transition and other ways to, we go about housing people, but nobody will be displaced, all right? So rest assured. I want to just talk for just a second about the shelter crisis for a moment, but from a slightly different perspective, and then we will vote. We will vote on this. You may have seen the news today, yesterday, about the work that the state task force commissioned by the governor that I am privileged to co-chair, the report that we put out. And I'm not going to go into great detail here, but it is very relevant to the city of Sacramento, because we propose that every level of government, the state, the counties, and the cities, be legally accountable with appropriate court action as a last resort as necessary to bring people home, to bring people indoors. And people have asked me in the course of these deliberations, are you willing to hold your own city accountable to an appropriate standard, an aggressive but reasonable standard, aggressive but reasonable timelines to bring people indoors? And my answer, without missing a beat, is you better believe I am on behalf of our city. Because we are stepping up. And yes, it's frustrating that how long it takes and getting everything up and going. But 2020, as I said the other day, it's go time. We've laid the foundation, and we had a very good end of the year. The council came together, the city management, SHRA, we're all together. And now is the opportunity to actually show what can be done, so that when that statewide accountability mandate, which will drive change, by the way, it will send the market signal that this is no longer an option in California. It is a mandate. We will be well on our way to meeting or exceeding that mandate. So I just wanted to note that today, that there is a interplay, obviously, between what we're doing and the role that I'm privileged to play here at the state level, and that we're going to push very hard to say it is no longer an option for any level of government to bring people home indoors. It's going to be a mandatory duty at all levels of government. Cities play their role. County plays their role, obviously. They're the Health and Human Services Agency, and the state plays its role. So I look forward to more on all of that as we continue our aggressive work here in the city of Sacramento. All right, we've got the consent calendar. It's been moved and seconded. But for item 7, and with Councilmember Jennings abstaining on item 9. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Oppose, abstain. Very good. That passes unanimously with an 8-0 vote, if you will, on item number 9. And we'll come back to item 7 in a moment. Okay, let's move now. Thank you, everybody, for coming. The rest of this is really interesting, too, by the way.
It's just the timeline of the power and stuff like that. Just
Okay, let us move now to item 19, which is the annual recommendation by the mayor to appoint the vice mayor and the mayor pro tem. First of all, I want to begin this item by, again, thanking and praising Vice Mayor Eric Guerra, who did a great job as vice mayor, not only chairing meetings in my absence in a very professional way, but also getting around the city and serving in that role with great distinction. You really did a good job, and I'm very personally appreciative of everything that you have done. This year, we rotate. There's the one time where Councilmember Jennings was the vice mayor for a second year, but my first year. And so we sort of established a little bit of a quasi-tradition here of one-year rotations. And this year, I would like to nominate Councilmember Jeff Harris as the vice mayor. And to nominate Councilmember Angelique Ashby to continue her role as the mayor pro tem. We are very fortunate to have just a great team of leaders here. And I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to shine and to be able to, have that citywide profile. And you all do represent the city as a whole in the various issues that you take on and the various leadership roles that you have, and just by force of your own personalities. And so I think we'll be well situated again for the coming year. Jeff, you're such a hardworking, earnest, committed public official, and you put your heart into everything. And I know you'll do an excellent job, just like Councilmember Guerra, Vice Mayor Guerra did. And Councilmember Ashby, thank you for continuing to want to serve in this role, as you bring so much, obviously, including tremendous institutional knowledge about our city and in everything that you do. So this is a good start, and I'm proud to put that on the floor. Councilmember Carr?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, was that a motion? I will second it.
Yeah, that's a motion. Okay.
Second.
Oh, he seconded it. Never mind. Go ahead.
Seconded already.
You're a third.
And I'd just like to thank Councilmember Guerra. We have watched you and the mayor take on the ceremonial lead for the city. I understand it's a great time commitment. You have a full-time job and a family, and you made a great sacrifice for the city to represent us at these events. And Councilmember Ashby has done the same thing. And I know that Councilmember Harris will continue on with that tradition. Well, thank you. We very much appreciate your serving in that capacity.
Well, thank you very much.
Very good. We've got Councilmember Harris, I guess, to decide whether to accept the nomination.
You know, I got to tell you, Mayor,
The longer you talk, the fewer votes you have.
Mayor, thank you for the nomination. I really look forward to working more closely with you. Continuing our tradition of breakfast together. It's going to be great. And Councilmember Guerra, I guess you're a council member again. Well, no, actually, you're still vice mayor. You have run the meetings very well, and I've appreciated your efforts. You stepped in when we needed you, and I just wanted to extend my thanks to you as being a very proactive and active vice mayor. I think you did a great job.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember.
Okay. Eric, did you want to speak or no?
I just wanted to say thank you, and it was a fun role, and even though sometimes I was equated to as running an auction or being an auctioneer, it was a lot of fun working here with my colleagues. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity.
Great job. Great job. All right. And no public testimony on this item. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. It shall be so. Thank you. That passes unanimously. All right. We now move to the workshop here. And this is, I want to frame this it just take me literally 30 seconds because I want to make sure that as we're debating a variety of issues that are not for action tonight, by the way, this is all for discussion, that we at least sort of have in mind some of the key intersections that we all have to consider together. Because as I see it, and I'm sure I'm missing something, there are at least 4 and maybe more potentially overlapping imperatives around the cannabis ownership question. Number one, we insist on pushing for more dispensary licenses for core participants. Priority number 1. Number 2, we also don't want overconcentration of ownership in general. Could be overlapping or conflicting, might not be. 3, we do not want to make it more difficult for core-owned dispensaries to get started by unduly limiting who core participants can partner with, which might be a tension point with the overconcentration issue. And finally, since we're the only city in the county that is engaging in the legalization of cannabis, as we expand, where do we cite any individual facility? So those are sort of the 4 issues for me that I would like to keep in mind as we are discussing and hearing the important topic before us. Lainey, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Lainey Milstein, Assistant City Manager. And I am actually no longer the current acting manager of the Cannabis Division. Before we get started today, I would like to introduce our new Cannabis Manager, Davina Smith, who comes... Davina comes from us from Solano County Council's office and has extensive professional experience in cannabis regulation, code enforcement, and land use, all of which will be invaluable as we move forward in our efforts to regulate this industry. It's important to remember that today's only her second day, so I'm sure it will be a learning experience for her, and we're currently scheduling an opportunity for council members, schedules permitting, to have some time one-on-one to speak with her. So I will go ahead and get started. On November 12th of last year, during a discussion of an ordinance to temporarily prohibit ownership changes in cannabis storefront dispensaries, the mayor proposed the addition of 5 storefront dispensary permits exclusively for the Cannabis Opportunity Reinvestment and Equity, or CORE program applicants or participants. At that time, council requested staff to return for an in-depth discussion and the opportunity to provide direction on the matter. In response to council's request, this workshop provides the opportunity for council to provide policy direction on the items identified in order to ensure that any future ordinance, resolution, or action on storefront dispensaries reflects council's intent. The presentation today will take you through a summary of prior council actions relative to storefront dispensaries and the issues which we are seeking direction. We will then circle back to each specific choice point that requires council direction such that staff can bring back the necessary ordinances to implement council's intent.
As you will see in the presentation to come, in some cases, we've included staff recommendations for consideration, or in other cases, options for council to consider and provide direction on. So this is our agenda for today, and we'll circle back to this when we get to the conversation portion. The first item we'd like direction on is the adjustment to the cap on storefront dispensaries. The development of the regulatory structure for cannabis businesses has been an evolving process, reflecting the changing legal and enforcement landscape at the state, federal, and local levels over the past 10 years. Starting with more than 50 registered dispensaries throughout Sacramento, at the conclusion of the Phase 2 application period in 2015, 30 dispensaries had completed the process and received a permit. Because no new dispensaries would qualify for a permit unless they had previously registered and completed the 2 phases of the application process, a de facto cap of 30 dispensaries was created. And in November 2017, Council adopted Ordinance 2017-60, removing all references to registered applicants in the 2 phases of the applications, and a cap of 30 permits was officially established at Section 5.150.350 of the City Code. As we come back to have this conversation in a moment, Council will be asked to provide direction on modifications to the current cap of 30. Eligibility for new permits. Based on current City Code, should Council increase the number of storefront dispensary permits, eligibility for the new storefront permits, well, we have a new leader up here, Jeff, or Councilmember Harris, sorry. Vice Mayor, get the lingo, apologies. Eligibility for new storefront permits will be determined through a lottery process pursuant to Sacramento City Code Section 5.15.350. Should Council choose to increase the number of storefront dispensary permits, staff is seeking direction on who will be eligible for the lottery for those permits. In August 2018, Council established our CORE program to provide an opportunity to own a cannabis business by individuals and communities disproportionately impacted on the war on drugs, specifically cannabis crimes. The CORE program participants receive entrepreneurship training, technical assistance, and other resource services from CORE facilitators, the Sacramento Asian Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Sacramento Urban League. Participants also receive currently priority processing and a fee waiver for city cannabis business operating permit applications. As of January 6th, 117 individuals have either completed or are going through the CORE program, and at least 1 individual has received a BOP, or a business operating permit for cultivation, and 2 individuals have BOP applications in process with the Office of Cannabis Management. Under the CORE program already, Council established priority processing for CORE applicants in the lottery process for the current 30 dispensary permits. Considering the discussion to increase storefront dispensary permits, staff requests Council direction as to whether any and all new business operating permits should be exclusive to CORE participants or open to general applicants only if there are no CORE participants, or any other method of processing. Either approach can be implemented through the existing lottery procedures. The next question relative to any CORE permits that are issued are the term and the ownership requirements of those permits. At the November 2019 Council meeting, Council expressed the intent to ensure that any storefront dispensary permits issued to a CORE participant remain a CORE permit without burdening participants who may benefit from a partnership that would provide access to the capital required to open a storefront dispensary, or from changing their ownership model in the future. Staff have found that other California cities had established requirements around their equity permits, and some examples are at least 51% ownership by an equity applicant is in place in Long Beach, Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, and Stockton. Equity applicants must own at least 40% and be the chief executive officer in San Francisco. And more than half of the members of a nonprofit board are equity applicants in San Francisco and Oakland. So in order to ensure that a storefront dispensary permit remains with a CORE participant, staff is recommending that Council include both a minimum period of time as well as a minimum ownership requirement. So the timeline to open a dispensary, so assuming we designate to a core participant or any other participant, how long should they have to open a dispensary? The majority of the storefront dispensaries obtained their CUPs between 2011 and 2016. However, 5 storefront dispensary owners have gone through the entitlement process and obtained conditional use permits over the last 3 years. It took between 5 and 9 months for storefront dispensary owners to go through the Planning and Design Commission process and obtain their conditional use permit for the new site. Once a CUP is obtained, the applicant must then obtain a building permit, complete all discretionary and required improvements, and then obtain their operating permit. Based upon recent processing times, if council authorizes additional storefront dispensary permits, staff is recommending that applicants be given 3 years to provide all the necessary documentation and complete the processes necessary to complete their operating permit application. The question of location of storefront dispensaries. Currently, storefront cannabis dispensaries that meet specific land use and siting criteria are permitted via a conditional use permit in the general commercial C2, heavy commercial C4, and light and heavy industrial M1, M1S, M2, M2S zones. Within the zones above, a CUP for a storefront dispensary must be heard by the Planning and Design Commission if located by, and then you can see the list that's up there. I won't repeat everything on the screen. And it's important to note that current city code does not allow a storefront dispensary within 600 feet of a school. In light of those current requirements, we have 3 questions relative to location. The first, on a request from the Planning and Design Commission, staff was moving through the process of bringing an ordinance to council for consideration that would allow storefront dispensary in the shopping center or S3 zone. That item was approved by the Planning and Design Commission on October 26, 2019, and was scheduled to be considered at the November 2019 Law and Legislation Committee meeting, but was redirected to council for direction today. Currently, none of the storefront dispensaries in the city are located in planned unit developments or PUDs, and it's important to note that in order to ensure that a dispensary would be compatible with the goals and objectives of a particular PUD, planning staff required in the item that would have gone to law and legislation that all proposed storefront dispensaries, including those in the shopping center zone, must also amend the PUD pursuant to planning code in order to allow the dispensary in the PUD. PUD amendments can be initiated by a property owner in the PUD and require the approval of the Planning and Design Commission. The second question relative to location is that given there are several CUPs for storefront dispensaries that could expire as they are no longer being used for that purpose, staff is offering the option to allow for the reactivation or extension of a CUP for core applicants as a way to reduce a significant barrier both in time and money to opening a storefront dispensary. And finally, in May of 2018, the council amended the Del Paso Boulevard Arden Way Special Planning District to prohibit cannabis cultivation on parcels fronting Del Paso Boulevard and Arden Way. Councilmember Warren has asked staff to expand the prohibition to all cannabis production businesses and delivery-only dispensaries, as these uses are not compatible with the goal of the SPD in that they are low-intensity, non-retail uses that are not pedestrian-friendly and do not activate the street. So that would leave only storefront dispensaries on the boulevard. We're going to come back to this one. We'll come back to everything. Sure.
That this has been constant, that we want to maintain our retail corridors for retail businesses and preclude cultivation for marijuana on and in our retail corridors, but retail uses would be allowed, including marijuana retail uses. Let me just also state too that one of the council members has asked that I recuse myself from speaking on this issue because I own property on Del Paso Boulevard, but this has been a consistent comment from me, and I intend to be very vocal about it unless the city attorney advises me otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Warren.
One of them was what the mayor referenced relative to ownership. In November 2019, to address the consolidation of ownership of storefront dispensaries in the city, council took 2 explicit actions. First, council approved an ordinance to temporarily suspend ownership changes by prohibiting the transfer of ownership interest of a storefront cannabis dispensary, and this provision expires on March 11, 2020. In addition, we added section 5.150.355 to the city code, which permanently prohibits one individual from obtaining an ownership interest in more than one storefront cannabis dispensary business, preventing further consolidation of ownership within our market. In a comparison with similar California cities, staff have found that Oakland limits an individual to no more than 2 dispensaries. San Jose limits a business to ownership in 1 storefront or 1 non-storefront dispensary, and San Francisco allows ownership of 4 dispensaries. Given that the addition of section 5.150.355 to the code reflects current regulatory limitations in similarly situated cities, and in fact is as strict as the strictest, and effectively presents further consolidation, staff is not recommending any further changes at this time. We also wanted to keep you up to date on one of our enforcement efforts relative to businesses that have been operating in the city that are not fully permitted. In July of 2019, we asked our businesses, or directed them, to obtain a building permit, complete their build-out, and get an operating permit by January 31st, or cease operations until such time as the business is fully permitted. Our code enforcement and building staff have been incredibly busy responding to the rush of permit activity, as code enforcement and our Office of Cannabis Management staff on the operating permit walkthroughs. We are working closely with code, fire, building, the city attorney, and the police department staff to ensure that we have a solid enforcement plan for February for those businesses that do not have an operating permit but are found to be operating. And when we put this together, the number was 71. 2 days later, it's 67. It's 23 cultivation, 5 manufacture, 7 distribution, and 32 delivery only. And our charge for February 1 is to determine who is still operating, as those are the people who are really subject to this enforcement effort. And then finally, I know you'll be happy to know this is the last slide. This is item 7 that was moved to come after this item. It was heard at Law and Legislation last week, as well as the pass for publication at Council last week. This item provides cleanup to our current Title V. The majority of the items in there are alignment with the state. The state has eliminated collectives. They have eliminated requirements to maintain certain records. They added a cultivation permit for nurseries, identification badge specification, and an allowance for shared manufacturing. So those are all changes that we've made in our code. We have other changes that provide consistency across our different permit types relative to security, as well as best practices that we found that we felt should be across our code. And then we have expanded and codified the grounds for denial of a permit that include violations of this chapter of law and certain sections of the building and fire code, because we want our business operators to understand that a violation of the current code could result in a denial of their permit. Before I conclude, I want to thank current staff in the Office of Cannabis Management and our partners in code enforcement, fire, police, and the city attorney's office. We're reliant on each other as part of a multidisciplinary team, and will continue this challenging work as we move through this next iteration of time and design of our cannabis regulatory system. I also look forward to collaborating further with the Office of the City Auditor in the development of a robust audit and compliance effort of this ever-changing industry, as Council approved the cannabis auditor earlier today on the consent calendar. Our intent is to return to Council with ordinances based on direction as soon as possible. The volume of the work may necessitate hearing these items individual on a flow basis, but we will try our best to consolidate them. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Lainey. That was very informative. A lot of issues were raised and a lot of information, a lot of possibilities for direction from council. So this is going to be a pretty robust discussion. Madam Clerk, I believe we have 15 speakers on this item.
That's correct, Vice Mayor Harris.
And will you go ahead and call the first speaker?
Yes, thank you. Khalil Ferguson is our first speaker, then Brian Smith, Frank Louie, then Rob Fong.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Khalil Ferguson. I'm an Executive Fellow for Policy and Research at the California Urban Partnership. To start, I would like to thank you for considering City staff's recommendations for hosting a workshop on all cannabis equity issues. We believe now, more than ever, the city must be intentional about ending the practice of fragmented policymaking where equity is concerned. In addressing the expansion of cannabis storefronts permits, we urge the City Council to exclusively grant licenses to core participants until they hold 50% of all dispensary licenses. Given the average amount of the time needed to get the necessary permits and documentation, we believe that a 30% increase over the next 3 years should be used as the floor in these permit increase considerations. We find the lottery process to be inappropriate at this time, given that the existing dispensaries did not have the same market entry requirement. Instead, we're requesting council to encourage multiple core participants to participate as an incentive for receiving a storefront license. Additionally, we recommend the use of an equity manager within the Office of Cannabis Management to ensure the policies and practices of the core program are followed on a day-to-day basis. This includes the goal of ensuring that storefront dispensaries remain in the hands of core participants. While the idea to extend formerly occupied CUP spaces to core participants is admirable in attempting to reduce the barriers for entry, we believe that this is only good to the extent that locations are desirable. Otherwise, it will mean trading market share for market entry. Thank you.
Next speaker is Brian Smith, then Frank Louie, then Rob Fong.
Hello, Council. I just want to say thank you for the equity program, and thank you for the Asian Chamber of Commerce for being such a great help getting me in and qualified. I lost my dispensary in 2011. I was arrested and I went to federal prison for 3 years. Going forward, I would ask that the City Council give an opportunity that exclusively allow equity members to have dispensaries with no cap. And I say this only because zoning code and buildings are the cap. And if you open it up to the general public, we're going to compete with people that have lots of money, that can just buy the building. So really this comes down to space and availability of a building for a storefront. And also, as far as the lottery system, it doesn't work in LA at all whatsoever. If you give the ownership 51% to an equity member, it gives that person value. It brings that person to the table for an investor that would actually promote them and give them an opportunity to succeed in having a dispensary. I also believe that if you give exclusive dispensaries to equity members only with no cap, that we can have a successful group of people that can collaborate together and move forward as fast as possible. And I would also ask that the council, you already know of my own situation, but there's others that have grievances that were arrested and lost their licenses and their opportunity. I passed phase 1, and I was taken away from the opportunity to go through phase 2. I lost my building, my family, my friends, my community. The damage that I've suffered is horrible. But thank you for your time, and thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Frank Louie, then Rob Fong.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Frank Lee with the Sacramento Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce and the operator of the Sacramento Grow Green program, which is part of the city's core program. I'm just here to acknowledge our support of item 20 and the mayor's initiatives to expand the dispensary licenses in the city of Sacramento. We look forward to the ongoing engagement to help provide input, develop and define the process, and the important support system resources for the core participants as we move forward with this initiative. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rob Fong, then Tiffany Sharp.
Vice Mayor, Council, thank you for
holding this workshop. I am here, I'm one of the consultants that's working with the SAC Asian Chamber on its core program and wanted to weigh in a bit. I think that anything you can do to expand the opportunities for the core participants is a move in the right direction. I don't know if there's a perfect way to do that. Lotteries kind of are tough, but I'm not sure what the alternative is. So we're certainly very supportive of any of your efforts to make more opportunities available. I did want to offer to sit down with you and your staff and been working with the mayor's office on a parallel type of solution where we would be proposing that you would entertain issuing master licenses to your core partners, whether it's the Urban League or the SAC Asian Chamber, and allow us to work with our participants on some sub-licenses in an incubator model. We think that it would really address the overconcentration issue and remove many of the kind of fiscal barriers to market for individual business owners. But would love to sit down with each of you to kind of brief you on the details. I think this is a perfect time to start thinking like that as a parallel sort of track with what the mayor's office is proposing, what you guys are considering. So very excited about the opportunities and kind of the, as Laney pointed out, I mean, it's an industry that is changing. I think the city of Sacramento is to be congratulated on being really at the forefront of this. And sometimes when we're near the front, the lessons learned are pretty fast. But I appreciate that the city is looking at what 2.0 looks like. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for your thinking on this. Ravona Laney and the city manager, Ms. Milstein and the city manager, how do we get to ground on really developing and considering some other creative ownership structures here? Because Rob has suggested one, it sounds really good, but obviously the cliche, the devil's in the details, right? So how do we get to ground on looking at this and maybe other creative models so that we're not just stuck between, okay, well, it's 51%, sorry, you were, you know, we said 51% and you're at 50.5, you know, we don't get into a rigidity around these rules.
You know, I think what we can do is have conversations with anybody who has these types of ideas, and like you said, take a look at how we can factor them into what the council has to say, but understand that as we consider this, these different options and approaches, that the time frame for it to come back to council gets extended.
Okay. I mean, there is urgency always, but I do think a sit down with the core leadership, but also and the broader industry leadership to talk about other models that might balance the concern about overconcentration with ensuring that we can help capitalize, especially the core businesses, is worth the time, even a little bit of time to really dig into that and see what's there.
And appreciate the comments, Mr. Mayor. Happy to be part of that conversation. And I would say that one of the things that I would encourage is that we not be hamstrung by looking what other cities have already done. I think a lot of your staff would tell you that you know, the degree of success.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Fong. Your time is complete.
That's very sad to me, Mindy. It's very sad to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tiffany Sharp, then John Long.
Good afternoon. Tiffany Sharp. I didn't state my affiliations earlier. I'm an attorney here in Sacramento. I'm also the founder of the California Institute for Cannabis Equity, as well as Women of Color in Cannabis. And the National Cannabis Industry Association released a comprehensive report and articulated 6 key goals of a social equity program: repair the damage to individuals caused by discriminatory enforcement of prohibition, create more equitable licensing outcomes through the application process, ensure the industry reflects the local community, address financial barriers to market entry, support companies and individuals entering the industry, and invest tax revenue in communities harmed by prohibition. And I specifically wanted to address item number 3 regarding the dispensaries. Currently, the dispensaries at 30, there are no people of color who own any of the dispensaries. And currently, the cap that has been placed, although I'm sure was not discriminatory in intent, is discriminatory in impact. It places a limitation on those now eligible core participants and equity applicants that could own a dispensary, and it prevents them from doing so. We advocate for doing away with the cap, and that any future licenses be granted to equity applicants. As far as the mayor had mentioned at the last city council meeting, we had took up this topic in November, a number of 5. The report talked about a max of potentially 30% over 3 years. This simply is just not enough. When we're talking about equity, we're talking about trying to reach an equitable solution. That would be a one-to-one process. Right now, again, I will reemphasize, we have 30 dispensaries owned by no people of color. And so we are very far from that. And so we would advocate for a public workshop and to allow the community, to answer your question, Mayor, how do we find creative solutions to this? You take it to the public.
Thank you for comments. Your time is complete. Our next speaker is John Long. Following John Long is Bailey Snow, then Brandon Bolton.
How you doing today, Council? So the reason why I'm up here is because, yes, the amount of dispensaries need to be extended far past 5. That's just not enough. Secondly, opening up to C3 zones would actually help out a lot because there's a lot more territory that people can actually put, more storefronts in. Also to help with getting the core their dispensary license as soon as possible, there should be some type of vetting process for launching this initiative with the dispensary license. So what I mean is there's a lot of active core members out there trying to put deals and things together in order to get vetted to get into a dispensary. So helping to get this process started, I really think that having capital and property and so forth, getting LOIs from certain facilities or your landowners would actually help with vetting into a process rather than just giving out a bunch of random dispensary license. So also on the thing that Mr. Seinberg was talking about on other initiatives, I do have a associate that can tell you about other opportunities that can come into play with shared manufacturing, distribution, so forth, that would actually help core members. And then not only if you guys somehow reenacted a temporary license situation, that all of the other members from reactivating a temporary license situation, that all the other...
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete.
Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Bailey Snow.
Hi, Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I've been a resident of the Sacramento area since I was 5, and I'm currently 22 years old. I am here to advocate for more licenses for core members and core participants. Because people say, if we add dispensaries, it'll drive business downtown, increase tax revenue, all of which are true. But we need to look beyond the bottom line. We need to look beyond the numbers to the people of Sacramento. Cannabis is a tool that people can use as a stepping stone, another tool in their toolbox to use towards healing. And if we allow people with physical and or mental health issues, give them that extra tool, give them that extra step towards healing and allowing them to become functioning members of society, we are reinvesting back into our own communities at the most fundamental level, which is the people of Sacramento. And Sacramento and California, by extension, set the precedent for the nation. So this goes beyond our city limits. This goes beyond the state of California. This goes into creating a better future for this country as a whole, for allowing some of the most vulnerable members of our society to have an extra tool in their toolbox to allow them to heal and allow them to move forward with their lives and allow them to be more functioning members of society. Thank you.
Next speaker is Brandon Bolton, then Kimberly Cargile.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, for your time. I really just first and foremost want to thank each and every one of you and your teams on taking really the leadership role and continually working on these items that we're really passionate about, and we show up here every time cannabis is on the agenda. And I just like to thank your guys' engagement as well to the community and holding meetings with us, and also allowing us to have our very first social equity stakeholders meeting. So thank you guys. I also want to really congratulate the new director of the Office of Cannabis Management. You have a lot of work ahead of you, so thank you for filling those big shoes. I just want to second what Tiffany was saying. We would like to hold public workshops so that way our stakeholders could actually continue to come and voice what we would like to see for policy changes. Because, yeah, we definitely meet. We have bi-monthly meetings where we all meet and talk about policy, and we just like to share that with you and our program directors. So thank you all for your time and the hard work that you and your staff continues to do day in, day out for us social equity members.
Vice Mayor, can I ask him a question, please?
Yes. Councilman Carr, yes.
You came to my office the other day, and I told you that I was purchasing some CBD oil to help with inflammation and arthritis. And I think it was 10-to-1 THC to CBD or something like that. And I told you I was paying $90 for that bottle of drops. And you own a distribution company.
Work on delivery.
Delivery company.
Yes, yeah.
And you told me the cost of that bottle. What did you say that bottle cost?
Well, I don't want to give any trade secrets away, but it's definitely not what kind of you sell it at retail for.
Well, as Mr. Hanson once said, you got to stick the landing here. You told me the bottle cost $5, and they were charging me $90 for it.
In some situations, like I said, I don't want to give any trade secrets away, so I don't want to kind of throw anybody under the bus.
Because we have a limited number of dispensaries, the price is able to be jacked up at that level.
Yeah, and that's what opening up the storefront cap would definitely allow us to hold our own shelf space. It's so hard. We can't get on the shelf space of any of the 30 storefronts. So if we have our own storefronts, we are our own shelf space. We build our own impenetrable market that, you know, they can't jack up the prices on us, because we're going to make sure we take care of our community members and our veterans and our members that have mental health issues that really need affordable access to this medicine. And opening up these storefront licenses, giving us that opportunity will definitely do that.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Kimberly Cargile, then Mindy Galloway.
I should have taken my CBD. I always take it before I public speak, and I forgot today, darn it. So, I'm Kimberly Cargile. I'm a patients' rights advocate and been advocating for our industry, for our legacy industry for the last 10 years here in Sacramento. I'm here today to advocate for raising the cap exclusively for core applicants. Let me say that again, exclusively for core applicants. This is an opportunity to take action to provide a huge benefit to equity applicants that they deserve, as our industry business owners benefit from their experiences. Since the passage of Prop 64, we have seen the diversity of our industry drastically diminish. The high cost of compliance has brought in big business, and they have taken over in the last 2 years. Small, women-owned, racially diverse, LGBTQ-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses are now hard to find, even though these are the business owners and the people that have laid the foundation for our industry. Looking at the reality of starting a dispensary, it'll take at least $500,000 to $1 million just to get the store open, and that you need to be aware that we don't have banking, we don't have financing, and we rely on investors. We sell shares to open these companies. So please keep that in mind for equity applicants. There will be needing some equity in their corporation to get the financing to open the store. Another concern is there has been abuse of this program in other areas that we've seen in Oakland. So I advise an equity advocate or manager within the city to oversee this program and make sure that when they bring on shareholders, those shareholders are not taking advantage of them. As we are a smart, progressive city, we need to address on-site consumption. This is a great time to do it. On a personal level, I asked for this as I have to smoke in back alleys before I go into yoga class. I asked for this for patients who are in public housing for a safe place to use cannabis. And I think that this is a great time to implement on-site consumption with the new core equity applicant dispensaries.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mindy Galloway, then Newa Totimi, then Malachi Amen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mindy Galloway. I am CEO of Camilla, cannabis manufacturing company in Sacramento, and also part of the equity program. I never thought that I would be here today saying that I'm a CEO, and the reason that I'm here is because of the support from mentors that I've had and then the people that are around me. The way that we, and I believe that we're going to be able to support and have successful equity companies is through community. And through that, we need to have retail dispensaries for equity companies so that we can support each other. And the way that I give back is also helping my equity friends and people through my experience. I was able to get my license before the implementation of the core program. And since I've been through the process, I help and answer questions for a lot of people going through the process as well. So increasing the number of dispensaries will help all equity businesses through that community. And I also encourage you to consider adding some elements to the dispensary, as in retail shelf space for equity companies. Percentages, this was implemented in San Francisco as well. They require 10% for other equity businesses. So even in the change of ownership, that equity dispensary would be supporting other equity businesses in our community so that we can thrive. And also increasing the number of the equity dispensaries. So the different people that I've talked to, there are way more than 5 equity applicants that are looking to open dispensaries in the city. So any consideration on increasing that number would be greatly appreciated. That is it.
Nawe Totimi.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Council, for allowing us this opportunity to participate in CORE. My name is Nawe Totime, and I am a recent graduate of the first cohort of SAC Green Equity at Greater Sacramento Urban League, and also a CORE business owner. We understand the extent of the program, and as CORE applicants, it has afforded us the opportunity to delve into the cannabis business. We have networked with community members, met with cannabis industry leaders, and planned for vertical integration within our cohort. Being that it takes a minimum of $3 million to open a storefront dispensary from start to end, and I will have 51% equity, I have created a partnership with one of the most recognized cannabis brands in the industry. We are eager about the opportunity to give back and reinvest into underserved communities harmed by the war on drugs. I stand here as a representative of not only myself, but our communities and our unrecognized efforts for many years to rise out of poverty. The path to financial stability is never an easy road. However, my business mind had led me to this role of leadership and responsibility to carry the torch for the underserved South Sacramento community I represent. Many of those who are not seeing the monetary benefits of legalization through change, advocacy, job training, and overall employee and workforce development. Lastly, I recommend that there's no lottery process on dispensaries. With the sunset of the program being in August of 2020, it will put a time limit on our opening of our businesses. So please keep in consideration an efficient timeline when considering CORE applicants. Thank you.
Next speaker is Malachi Amen. Following Malachi is Deanna Garcia, then Cassandra Jennings.
Greetings, Vice Mayor, Mayor, and council members. I'm Malachi Amen of the California Urban Partnership, and appreciate all of you and your leadership in terms of listening to the community thus far around equity issues in this new burgeoning industry. We did a lot of work a couple of years ago. We came to you, we educated the community, we organized the community, we did policy analysis, legal research, and you listened, and we are here now because you listened. And we're also here now because there's much work still left to do. On this note of cannabis dispensaries, it is one of those issues that I think brings us to a great place, but we have an issue with fragmenting the decision-making on cannabis dispensaries and not looking at other opportunities to ensure that core program participants are fully included and have full ownership in other opportunities. And so I just wanted to come and thank you for having this workshop, but also to echo some of the other concerns about, how we really need to open this public process up and have a full discussion about what would constitute equity at the end of the day. There are on-site consumption licenses. There are some opportunities to exclusively grant delivery-only dispensary permits, and there's an opportunity to discuss cannabis issues overall. And we really do need to have a public process on making sure all of those things happen. Thank you.
Next speaker is Deanna Garcia, then Cassandra Jennings.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Vice Mayor. Thank you for holding this meeting today. My name is Deanna Garcia. I am the Urban League Core program recipient. I'm going through the program right now. I'm very excited to be going through this program right now, as I wanted to have a dispensary a lot of years ago here in the city of Sacramento, and unfortunately it wasn't available. So I'm very happy to have this second chance to become a business owner here in the city of Sacramento. And I appreciate the city of Sacramento and how it has always opened a pathway for licensing in the cannabis industry so we can become legal businesses. And the city of Sacramento has never turned their back on the cannabis industry. They've always been there for us. Whether if you agree with it or you don't agree with it, you've always made some, laws. You've always made licensing available. You've always come forward to the cannabis industry with open arms and a way for legalization. And I just appreciate all your hard work that you've always put out there for us, and you guys always going to bat for us, and all the city council members and the mayor. I understand a lot of people that vote for you may not want you to be as awesome as you are to us, to our industry, and I just thank you for always being there for us.
Cassandra Jennings, then Vinnie.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. Cassandra Jennings, President and CEO of the Greater Sacramento Urban League, and we're really honored to be one of the business support centers for the core program. I would just like to speak to what you're considering today. First of all, for the adjustment of the cap, we absolutely support that. I also support that exclusively for core participants. I know that we talk a lot about the number. I think as much as the number is important, just as important is that we get going. So if 5 is the number we need to start with, let's start there, exclusive for core members, and then let's keep it moving forward. The fundamental success of any kind of equity program, including the core program, is the ability to get across the finish line. For those who want to do dispensaries, right now we don't have an option for our core participants. They need access to the permit to start and to run their businesses. For example, the first core permittee was granted her permit in cultivation because a couple of just basic things. One, she was prepared and ready, but 2, there was access to the CUP for the cultivation, and therefore she's in that business now officially. We need that same opportunity for dispensaries within the core participants. I would also like to say, in reference to the term and the ownership, I agree to sustain that and to make sure that it doesn't go back to where it is now. We do need limits. I would say 10 years is good, and then it should also always be 51% ownership. It is important, as we try to implement the core program and be effective, that there's access to the permits. This is a start, so I support us getting started and getting started as soon as possible. Thank you for your consideration today.
Our next speaker is Vinny, then Brenda Davis, then Ray Purse.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for holding this public workshop. So my name is Vinny, my real name is Vinod, and Mr. Mayor, you spoke outside about heroes. And about 3 years ago exactly, on January 11th, I lost my best friend and my hero, Sergeant Larry James de Guzman. He was a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and he fought for the advocacy of many veterans in college. And actually, that's why I got my start in cannabis. I gave up my corporate job of 5 years, and I gave up everything to get my start on the 215 market, the black market, as many call, to understand mental health. I worked many years to try to be an advocate for mental health, cannabis, and it was very difficult, I will be honest. However, through all that, I was able to get into the Prop 64 market. So I am also an advocate, I guess you would say, of doing things legally because of how the black market and the 215, what that also showed me. So as we were kind of going, talking about different solutions here for the core program, many of the obstacles that I face in the legal market is why a $5 item is $90, because capitalism does not have an opportunity to take hold right now in Sacramento. There's not enough brands, and even more so, not enough core brands, core people, core, like you were speaking about, free market is not here yet. We need to allow the Prop 64 companies that want to do good, we need them to incubate the core program, but not in a predatory way. I volunteer with a lot of vets still on the 215 because I never forgot why I got involved in Sacramento and why I got involved in cannabis. So it's not a matter of limiting the amount of dispensaries. It's about opening up to allow Prop 64 to incubate these core good people. So, we can work together on this. And I'd be happy to discuss that more with you. Please don't yell at me, Mindy. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda Davis, then Ray Purse.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Brenda Davis, and I serve in a capacity as the program director for the Greater Sacramento Urban League Sac Green Equity Program. And I support the idea that 5 dispensaries would be made available and raise the cap, and it would be core exclusive, and there would not be a lottery. And I'm available to answer any questions the council may have. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ray Purse, and our final speaker is Maisha Bahati.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council. I'm Ray Purse. I am a consultant for the equity entrepreneurs. That's why our consulting firm call them. They are, say, core, but we like to refer to them as entrepreneurs, equity entrepreneurs. I was on a conference call with the state. It was yesterday, and they're making some changes to the state regulations. And one thing I was proud of is for the 2021 state budget, there's going to be grants for $45 million for the social equity program from the state. Now, with that said, they worked very hard on that. Now, it was also mentioned there are going to be some structural changes. You'll be able to just go to one, when the proposal, cannabis business should be able to go to one department, not just the 3 that they go to now. It'll be the Department of Cannabis Control. Also, they told me over the phone that when the jurisdictions get these grant funds, they can decide how they want to use those funds in their program. And one of the issues we have here is startup costs. And I'm working with a number of equity clients who are wanting to do delivery only. And I would like conversations to be done where you do create a loan program or a funding program where that plan can cover the cost. It's $80,000 that we're recommending. So we want to be a part of that because you can do that and then they can pay it back, probably interest only. And then now we got a continuing fund to where it will
Thank you
help
for your
them.
comments. Your time is complete.
Thank you.
And our final speaker is Maisha Bahati.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Maisha Bahati, and I am the first women-owned and minority-owned licensed delivery here in Sacramento. Crystal Nags, thank you very much. We've been operating for almost a year. We operate out of the largest facility, shared facility in Sacramento in District 2. And as someone in the industry, I have a lot of solutions. I've reached out to many of you via email, and I hope to meet with you soon. I am a core applicant along with my colleague, Miko Banks, from Resin Farms. And again, I have knowledge in the industry because I work in the industry. And I support the dispensaries for core applicants. I think it's very important. And again, I look forward to talking to those that I've reached out via email on some realistic solutions from someone in the industry. Okay, I know I've been working in the industry for a year. I have an insight that a lot of people don't. And I'd be more than willing to talk to you guys about that. As a woman of color working in cannabis, not very many of us. I'm the only one that's licensed, working, Black in the core. So again, please give me the opportunity to share some solutions that many of you guys don't have because you're not talking to someone who's actually working in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, that is the public testimony on the item. Let's turn it back to the City Council and begin with Councilmember Carr.
Mayor. Malachi, you're always like 10 steps ahead of us. I know that there are other issues that need to be addressed. This particular one is just addressing dispensaries. And there are many opportunities for other items and financing opportunities. I don't agree with the raising the cap to 5 more dispensaries. I don't really believe that that's equity. There are 30 licenses that are granted. Equity will be when we have 30 core licenses granted. I haven't lobbied this or talked to the other council members about it, so I don't know where everyone is on this issue. If we went with increasing the number to 5, we would have 14%, and we limited those 5 to core participants. We'd have 14% of the licenses to core participants. If we did 10, we would have 25%. That seems to be more equitable than 14%, but I don't know where my colleagues are. If it was just me, it would be 30 new licenses exclusively for core participants, and that provides equity. I heard a number of comments about various approaches that we could use for determining ownership and making sure the profits from these activities were actually went to where they were intended. And the staff has made some recommendations too. Laney, are we going to have a process where you can get input from people to kind of put a framework around some of those issues that they've raised tonight?
So we actually have a opportunity, so everybody knows our stakeholder meetings that are held monthly are open to everybody. So I hope that nobody feels that they couldn't, oh, am I not? Okay. Our stakeholder meetings that are held monthly are open to everybody. Am I? So I just want to make sure that there's nobody that didn't feel that they could participate in those stakeholder meetings. And that's where we bring up policy issues around this. Council can choose to not make a determination on ownership today. They could determine a number today. We can go back and work on that. We would need then to go through a more public process on ownership requirements, if that's council's direction, and then come back and provide recommendations based on that. We tried to look at what best practices were in other similarly situated cities. And I understand we don't always want to recreate the Titanic, but where there are ownership models that are working and present an opportunity to look at something and utilize that as a model, we have done that. And so it appeared that a some time frame, as well as an explicit ownership interest requirement were two bases for an equity permit. So that's what's reflected in the recommendation, that include those two minimums.
Well, I'm also sensitive to Mrs. Jennings' analysis that it's time to get started. So I wouldn't want to hold up everything while we went through another process. But we could have that process, we could provide guidance tonight for the drafting, and the number that we come up with would serve as the basis for proceeding, and then we would continue to refine it in our future meetings. Otherwise, we get stuck and we don't move. I'm also sensitive to Councilmember Warren's request that we do not have large, dark spaces on commercial corridors. That should go for Del Paso, that should go for anywhere. But there's a solution. We already have the ability to call up these items in the process and have the opportunity to try to convince our fellow council members that this place is not a place for a large blank space in a retail area. I'm not against having shopping centers have dispensaries, C3 zone areas have dispensaries, especially when we can call them up if we think that there's a compelling reason why there shouldn't be one there. So the bottom line for me is, first, no cap. I don't see a reason for a cap. Second, if we were looking for equity, it would be 30 licenses exclusively for core participants. If we're looking for something, if we have to compromise on something less than that, I think no less than 25% to core participants. But this is the nature of representative democracy. I'm just one vote. All these people have a vote, and we'll see where we end up. But I'm going for at least 10. But my, if I had it my way, it would be at least 30 with no cap at all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Carr. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, my sentiment aligns pretty closely with Councilmember Carr's, and I think we've waited a long time. I have been somewhat critical of the ordinance that we have in place because it did exclude a large number of people in our city, particularly minority folks, but also I think it has created a monopoly for individuals that are in business now, and I think it is artificially manipulating price and also the availability of product. I've gotten a number of calls from people who have been granted licenses to cultivate, but they cannot find a place to reasonably sell their product to, and so they're having a hard time getting their stuff to market. You know, also, I think that we want to make sure, though, that the program, as we're making these changes to it, really hits the mark. And so part of that, I think, is to really make sure that it's equitable, but it's equitable in the truest sense. And there has to be some measure for length of ownership, real participation, not necessarily companies that are, they look one way, but behind the scenes is something else. And so we really need to be about really generating true businesses for the people intended and real opportunities for employment. And so we have to really, I think, take this serious, and therefore I believe we need to have an audit component, a component that really can go to the details to make sure that we don't run into some of the situations that we currently have that are unfortunately showing us in a bad light in the city of Sacramento. And so with that said, Councilman Carr, I would be happy with 10, but something above 10 would actually make me happier. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I will yield the mic back.
You said 10, that was your?
10 would give me minimum happiness. Minimum happiness.
Minimal happiness. Okay, well, we want at least minimal happiness.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Guerra.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to start off by thanking our staff for a lot of their work, and I do appreciate the time that they give for the stakeholder process. And I want to reiterate what our staff had mentioned, that the meetings for the stakeholder process are public. They're listed, and they're, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're also televised. Is that correct? So anyone in the general public, anyone who wants to learn about this industry can watch them and learn about them, and don't have to come down to downtown all the time if they want to keep up to date on this process. Council District 6, since before my time on the council, when we first started with I think it was the 215 dispensaries, has had the largest number of dispensaries, I think, since 2013 in the district. And so there's a little bit of history and experience with this area in District 6, both as when I was a neighborhood leader and also now as a council member on this issue. The first thing I'll bring up is that when any business comes into the neighborhood, we want them to look at hiring locally, to support their local economy, to making sure that we can also be good environmental stewards by making sure people aren't driving an hour away for a job opportunity. So over the last few years, as this industry has grown, no pun intended, on the cultivation, manufacturing, the delivery, they are in that process of hiring and getting to scale. And so we are helping and working with some of those industries, businesses in the Power In area to staff up, and working with them to do a lot of targeted outreach so that they are hiring locally within the community and ensuring that they're also responsive to the community. I know some of them have helped out with the senior Thanksgiving dinner, helped out with and many of them are three-generation residents and who have lived in the southeast area, the Avondale, Glen Elder, the Colonial Village community, and now are participating in this industry. What's interesting, particularly in the retail side of the non-storefront, the growth in communities of color and women who are involved in this area. So it's been an interesting experience to see how this industry has evolved. So more information to come on the job fair. Once we get the flyer out, we'll make sure everybody is aware of it so that we get that information out about opportunities. And that goes everything from someone with no high school education to someone who's got a bio degree or an engineering degree. They need them at all levels in the industry. On the issue of, I'm going to start off with the issue of ownership. Little experience I had when I worked for an assembly member who oversaw the state administration budget, and we worked on a state audit related to veteran-owned businesses. And unfortunately, other bigger players, those businesses with bigger money, used the veteran-owned businesses as a way to get into a preferential treatment. So I would like to direct staff to find what is the appropriate and not overly restrictive ownership standards, so that someone doesn't profiteer from a core participant, so that the core participants are always on the winning end of any negotiation. Those with resources may have the attorneys to craft the right deals. I want to make sure that as we're moving forward, ownership is an important factor. The other issue is also, I think, making sure that the licensing and the time to getting the use of that license is limited to 3 years once they get their conditional use permit. If we do have caps, then if someone is not going to move on that license, we want to make sure that that license becomes productive, that it becomes used. And I know we are working on that issue when it comes to cultivation in the Powering area where we've capped the number of square footage. We want to enforce on that. I know today we're discussing specifically about dispensaries, but we want to make sure that 3 years. Good. And then I'm going to go on the exclusivity or priority. I can go back and forth on this, but my first initial gut feeling on this, and I'd like the staff to start on this, and then as it moves through the process, I'm assuming this is when this comes back, it's going to come through the process. Is that correct, Lainey?
Staff will draft an ordinance, it'll come through Law and Ledge, and then move forward to council. On any of these things, we'll need ordinances.
Okay, and I'd like to see more of the pros and cons, but at the first, my interest is at the beginning that it be exclusive to core participants. I'm willing to look at it be expanded, but I feel if the city has developed a program, if we've put pressure on a program to help train folks, that we use that path and encourage folks to follow that path. That would be my preference, is to be that any new licenses be exclusive. The last part, I think, which is probably the most controversial part, is the cap and how much or when. So the history, I started off with the history of District 6, is that because of the zoning and because of the distance requirements, the majority of them ended up in the industrial area, which means they all were concentrated in one area. The southeast area, South Sac, was concentrated with storefront retail. Now, because of some of the changes we made on the council, allowing folks to move theirs, some of them we've done some enforcement action. By and large, I will say that the operators of the dispensaries have complied and followed through and met all of the standards that we've asked. But by and large, it's been an over-concentration. And in the area where we've been trying to create an innovation center, a new place where right now we're looking at the mobility center. I remember before I was on the council, there was a debate about a dispensary moving in, and it used a very valuable piece of space that was intended for, as we developed our area, a place for innovation, and now we have students living there and whatnot. So all to say that the restriction in space becomes a situation where only where you're going to concentrate them in only basically 2 areas, District 2 or District 6. And so I think that has always been a concern because it does force them. So on the area of location, I'm open to looking at the shopping center location, although there are some shopping centers where we've done a lot of work also in District 6 with Councilmember Chenier about reducing the number of liquor stores, check cashing stores, massage parlors, smoke shops. And over the years, I've spent a lot of resources through our housing authority and whatnot to improve those areas. I wouldn't want those shopping centers become also an over-concentration in this area. So I'd like to, as that moves forward, I'm open to expanding the space, but definitely areas like Folsom Boulevard would not be an appropriate place where we're trying to do some revitalization in that area. On the piece of the cap, we have 30 for now, and for a long time, District 6 had a third of them located in that area. And we've had, with our city auditor, we've been trying to keep up with the enforcement. So I have a strong hesitancy of doing an open cap where we don't have the staff available to do the appropriate monitoring and mitigation and doing what we should be doing, which is helping new businesses that may have some fits and starts comply and be good businesses. Not because they intend to be bad businesses, but because there's challenges every time you start a new business. So I have a strong hesitation of lifting the cap entirely for this, and so we should be starting modest. I think a 10% growth of anything is enough. When we looked at the cap in District 6, we used, for cultivation, we used a 10% cap. So I think that's an important thing to look at, is to go at a 10% increase. Whether they were in 1 year or 3 year, I think that's all depends on the staff capability and whether there are participants available. My understanding from staff, correct me if I'm wrong, Lainey, is that currently the current core participants are not in a position yet to take on a cannabis dispensary storefront permit. Is that correct?
Well, there are 117 graduates, and any one of those could be ready to take on a permit, and any of those could be eligible to participate in a lottery. They say they're ready.
They say they're ready.
Right.
Yeah. So, but now that's different than from what you had mentioned.
If I had said that, that was not my intent. They
Okay.
believe they are ready to go. They're just waiting on having a permit available.
Well,
one of our concerns that we had expressed is capacity to process if we get 30 permit applications at one time, and on the planning side going through this.
So the staff is not ready.
So there's going to be, depending on 5 good, 10 challenging, 30 hard. So it will take time to process as the volume increases.
So, and that again underscores my concern about our responsibility also to ensure that we have a good process. So if the staff is not ready to take on that many, then we should be conservative in that approach. We have been, I think, for most of our processes, whether it's been on the delivery, whether it's been on manufacturing or cultivation, been moving slowly on it, and the process has been good because I haven't heard that many complaints from my constituents, and a big chunk of the industry is in District 6. So the more we move judiciously and prudent, I think is going to make sure that we also don't have any mistakes that move forward. So at least for me, I'm more of the, again, as Councilmember Carter mentioned, I'm just one vote here as well. I'm more interested in being conservative. If we do move forward with any new, that they be exclusive to core participants, because I do want to make sure that we have the staff capability of managing a program. I know there are concerns in my own district about not lifting the cap at all, but if we do have this program, it has to be a realistic path forward. So I'll stop there, Mr. Mayor, and I do want to thank our city staff, and I know some of the folks that came and spoke up have been active with our community partners. They've taken the time to meet with their neighbors in the industry to move this whole industry forward. Thank you, Mr.
Very good. Thank you, Councilman Guerra. Councilmember Harris. Can you?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd also like to thank my council colleagues for letting me jump ahead in the queue because I have to run off to a school district meeting very quickly. I believe in competition, and I also want our cannabis industry to thrive. Right now we have a very substantial unlawful cannabis industry in Sacramento, and the policy decisions that we have taken thus far are trying to manage the business such that those people who have been growing or selling unlawfully come into the light and do it legally within the parameters that we put forward. In that regard, I think that maybe a little more competition with more storefront dispensaries is a good thing. So, but at the same time, I'm not sure that constituents are ready for an explosion of storefronts in the city, and I prefer to take a little bit more cautious approach moving forward because that's worked for us. As Councilmember Guerra said previously, issues have arisen when we take on too much too quickly. And they've mostly expressed in D6, but to a certain extent in D3 as well. So I'm in favor of 10% at this point, Laney, exclusive to core. And then we could revisit that in another year and maybe take on, a possibility of another 3 as we look at it a year out. there are a lot of barriers, mostly monetary, to core participants getting into a storefront dispensary. I like the 3-year timeline. I think that that's realistic. And lastly, as far as location goes, it was myself who brought forward the shopping center zoning idea. And the reason is this. Currently, you could put a storefront dispensary at Arden Fair Mall, but you could not at Point West Shopping Center, which is actually a much better place to do it. If there were more storefront dispensaries available to Councilmember Carr, he's got shopping centers in his district that could be potentially really good places to put a storefront dispensary rather than sequestered in an off-the-path area. You know, look, there's a lot of demand for cannabis products in this city. And if we want this to be a viable business, keeping it in the shadows in commercial areas is not the way to help it thrive. So I brought that idea forward. Not every shopping center is a good place, and as Councilmember Carr brought up, we do have council call-ups so that we can manage issues in our own districts for appropriate places. So that's the direction that I would like to give you, Lainey. And also, before I go, I'd like to say welcome to Davina. I think that you will be brilliant in your position. I'm very impressed with your qualifications, and you're also a very lovely person. So I think we have a win at the city. Thank you very much, and thank you, Jay.
Of course, Councilmember Chenier.
Thank you, Mayor. Davina, welcome. You got a lot of work to do. You got a lot of stakeholders who want a lot of things, which is all good. And Lainey, thank you for the presentation. Couple of kind of overall pieces, and then I'll actually work through your questions, if that works for you. One is, and this is something we've discussed before, we kind of have a fundamental question about whether we treat this uniquely as an industry or treat this like other industries. We would never put a cap on the number of grocery stores that come in or the number of hardware stores. But it is a unique business. We charge more on tax. And we want to make sure that we can do everything possible to keep this healthy. This is an important piece of city revenue. But beyond that, it's a really important job creator. If you go back and look at the McGeorge or the UP economic analysis, it talked about $4.2 billion worth of economic activity in the region and 19,000 jobs, and for the most part, good paying jobs. So I think, and Lainey, when you introduced Davina, you talked about regulating the industry. I think that's a piece of the puzzle here. The other piece is keeping it healthy, both for those who are in it and for the city and the community itself. And that covers a lot of different things. One piece I'd like to do is request, and I've made this request before, but I'll do it again. I think this is the appropriate time, is that we do an economic analysis of the industry here in Sacramento. We have one that we could probably build on that University of the Pacific did. And I think that a lot of the questions that we're asking, and I don't want to hold up everything for a 6-month analysis or something like that. We could make some decisions about moving forward on raising the cap if the council chooses to do so. But I think that doing an economic analysis of this in the bigger picture will give us a lot of good information about what the industry can withstand, how quickly we should continue to expand. And there's a lot of questions about neighborhoods and things like that we want to do, and could also impact what we do around core as we move forward. So I want to make that request to the city manager. I think it's an important piece for us. I also think that as we move forward with the audit component that the mayor has asked for and doing audits kind of in real time, so we can be about continuous improvement, I think that should reflect into the core program as well. We took a flyer on this, which I think was the right thing to do. We invested a lot of money, but seeing how we're operating, how the two programs are operating, and how continuous improvement could be put into that situation as well would be important for us to do. So that's kind of my overall, as far as the cap, I'm open. Again, I think that we should really look at how it will impact the industry and make some decisions based on data. I do think we need to increase it with some minimum. I don't know that it's 5 or 10. I'm willing to have that discussion, certainly. But we want to make sure that the industry can stay healthy. On the exclusivity, I want to offer a little bit of a hybrid, and I'm frankly not sure if it's good or not, but put it down for people's consideration. I think it needs to be not open to the general public, so I'll start with what I don't think it should be. I do think that there are individuals in our communities that are core eligible but have not participated in the program. So when I hire people in my business, it may be a BA or similar experience. We might want to take a look at what other qualifications someone has, where if they would be core eligible, that might be an alternative for them to enter the program and do that as well. So I don't want to exclude folks because they haven't done the program if they're still eligible. I think we still have a quorum. I think as a piece of that, and Lainey, I'm sure that this would happen, is the requirements that we have, and we have them in Title V and Title 17, I know, but the requirements that we have for people to enter the program, this is all about getting to success and making sure we're doing everything to choose folks who can be successful. I would be interested in how the vetting process is going from the city manager's office around Measure U funding, and maybe adopting something similar to that. And this would allow us also, if people are outside the program but would be eligible for it, it's a way to vet an application or a business plan. So I want to offer that up and see what people think about that. Sorry, I'm one-armed here. I think on the ownership piece, I want to, and Lainey, you and I have talked about this, so I'll bring it up here. I think that the 51% is a minimum. I think the other thing we really need to think about, I'm not sure again what the answer is, and actually I asked some of the stakeholders to think about this. We need to look at profit sharing. It's possible to basically game the system pretty easily, where I don't have ownership, but I'm coming in, financing it, and saying I want 80% of the profits for doing that, and the core participant is not getting what they should be getting. So I think we need to be a little bit, we need to find a finer point on this and maybe relate, and profits are sometimes difficult to define, but I think we need to relate ownership and profit sharing as we go forward so people can't game the system. And I'm certainly, and Brenda, I'm looking at you on this one, I'm certainly open to thinking about this with other folks and seeing what we can do about that. We do not want to end up in a position like Oakland where their participants are being used by others. And so I think we need to take extra steps to make sure that doesn't happen. The timeline to open a dispensary, I think 3 years is fine. You know, as long as, again, this goes along with a work plan, budget, all of those things that we need to require alongside of that. And I think that also gives you an opportunity with those documents to say, if it's 3 years and a couple months, but they're along their work plan, to be able to have some flexibility there. The C3 piece, as far as shopping centers, I think that would be fine. I'm happy to do that. I think that takes some of the pressure off of District 6 and District 2. Folks have an opportunity to call it up and certainly work with applicants, so there's lots of ways to get at that. But I think opening that one up is fine, and would actually increase the safety at a number of our shopping centers by having those stores in there. The only other thing, and maybe you can, I've gotten some calls about the new date that you put up, the January 31st date, from folks who are working. And can you talk a little bit more about how you're dealing with if someone is doing what they said they're doing? The city is not always the fastest to respond. There are other challenges that people can have. I want to make sure that if people have been good operators, if they've been paying their BOT on time, and they're up and running, what we can do on that.
So we explored the notion of providing extensions to that deadline. And because our enforcement requires that if we are going to provide an extension to one, we provide an extension to all. And given the fact that we have 71 who we believe are going to continue to be out of compliance, that's problematic. What we are committed to, though, is those people that have been doing it right, the people who are where the ball is in our court. Either we are working through, on the construction side, permit final inspections, or they've got a walkthrough with us, but because of our capacity, we can't get to the walkthrough prior to January 31. That's where we have discretion to say, look, we have 71 or 67 potentially that we know we have to go after, and those people who are working it through the system the right way will not be in that priority list. So people who know they've been doing, have already been in conversation with us. And so we should definitely talk about the people that you're hearing from and what their situation might be.
Okay, I'll do that. As long as we have some flexibility if they're playing by the rules, but there are things that are out of our control.
If
out of their
it's out of
control.
our control or it's in our court, then we're going to own that.
Okay, thanks. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilman Junior. Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. Welcome, Davina. We are glad to have you, and as you can see, you have a big job to walk into, and so I've got nothing but great compliments about your resume and your experience and everything that you do, and so we are looking forward to working with you. So, again, congratulations, and I also want to give congratulations to the 117 core graduates. Are they in the room now? Where are you? So I know all 117 didn't show up, but you guys, I don't know that I know them all, but congratulations. I mean, I knew it took a lot in order to get through, and you know, I kind of want to talk about the fact that you were committed to going through the classes and everything it took in order to graduate. And I want to kind of start with that as a starting point, because if we were to go back to the commitment that we made in adopting the core program, if we were just to go back to that commitment, I think everyone who went through the program had the expectation that the next opportunities would be for them. Is that a fair assessment? And so I think we have to stay true to that adoption of the core program. And I think we have to stay true to the 117 graduates. And so for me, until there is equity in this program, I believe that core should be exclusively selected as the next participants to take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of us today. I don't think that we can expand or prioritize without making core the exclusive participants and recipients of the opportunity that's in front of us. And we've had 30 dispensaries since how long? How long have they been in place? 2015. So 2015, so that means we are now in our 5th year of 30 dispensaries having exclusive opportunity. So that means that people have waited on the side of the road waiting for their opportunity, and I don't see any other way to get to equity and to be fair and to maintain the commitment that we made when we established the core program than to make it exclusive for core participants. And so if I have my vote on this matter, I want to make sure that that's what we move towards, and I think I've heard other council members say the same. So that's where I'm at on that. As far as the cap is concerned, I don't want to ask you at this point in time, what is our capacity? I think if we told you a number, I think we'd try to figure out how to get to that capacity. I agree that it should be a modest cap, but at the same time, I agree that we should move according to our capacity. And so if 5 is the number, 5 is the number. I heard Councilmember Warren say 10 would make him happier. I heard someone else say that if 30 is currently out there, then 30 should be the number. I can't tell you exactly what number I can just say that I don't think we should overcommit ourselves beyond our capacity. And so I'd be very interested in hearing what our capacity is as an organization, as a city, and then try to somehow figure out how to get into that. I agree with the economic analysis. I agree with the impact on the industry, Jay. I agree with all those things, but at the same time, while I agree with those, I think we should be moving at the same time that we look at the impact on the industry and we look at the analysis. I don't think we should stop and do that and then decide that it's 5. So, go ahead.
So I had a mental exchange with our planning staff over here, because that's where we think we can really hit a roadblock, is just the volume of planning work. And their estimate is 10 is manageable if we're going to get 10 CUPs and be working on that, given the staff that we have, that would be a manageable workload in that kind of 1-year period that it's going to take to. I'm sorry, that 10 is a manageable workload given existing planning staff workload and what that would add to that. So within that kind of, because it takes about that year, and to be doing 10 at a time, it's workload intensive, but that is manageable. And that's really, on the operating permit side, it's not as much of a question, because that's a pretty explicit checklist of stuff that they will have to have gotten through, but it's really that planning on the land use side, that process that is time intensive and labor intensive.
Okay. So if 10 is a manageable number, then the only caveat I'd put in is that we have an agreed upon time that we can come back and then start looking at what can we do beyond 10. Because if it took us 5 years to get to 30, I'm hoping our processes and procedures are moving at a faster pace so it doesn't take another 5 years to get to another 30. Some of us may not be around here to see. I was talking about you, not me. No, I'm joking. I'm serious. But I think especially the core graduates who have gone through this program with expectations of being able to take advantage of the work that they've done, we want to make sure that they see it in their lifetime. And then on the matter of ownership, I want to look at that a little bit more, but, I always believe that when you have best practices that are in place, you look at the best practices that are in the marketplace and you take a look at what may work best here. And we're going to have an opportunity to come back and talk about this some more. I believe this comes back when? To Law and Ledge in the February meeting? Is that January meeting? Okay. So come back to Law and Ledge in March sometime, and then back to the council in March or early April. That sound right?
Provided there's no additional feedback from Law and Ledge that we'll have to do more work on, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think whether we do it at Law and Ledge or through your stakeholders meeting, there's also a desire to get some more input from folks based on this conversation, which I think is important. So be quick, but don't hurry, right,
Yeah.
on this one?
No, and I agree. And I think that was my final point, is on the stakeholder meetings. I'm hoping that everybody now knows that they can participate in that. I'm hoping they will participate. And I think there's a lot of knowledge that will come out of the stakeholder meetings that will inform all of us. And so that's my hope.
On the stakeholder meetings, I heard from the audience as we sat here that some people need the opportunity to have those after hours, and so that's something that we'll definitely look at scheduling, not maybe all of them, but some of them, so that we are accessible to everybody who wants to participate.
Okay. Mayor, that's it for me for now.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Jennings. Councilmember Ashby.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so first of all, I think I should start by thanking the people in the industry, because I have perpetually voted no on marijuana, including our very first vote on it, whether or not we should enter into this discussion in this business in Sacramento. I have a hard time with it. My district doesn't care for it. It's a hot button for me. And while I have come along and voted on things, I voted for medicinal, and I definitely have supported core all the way through. No topic that we take up at this dais tests me personally, me as a person, more than this particular issue. And I feel like the industry, and many of you are good friends, Katie and Tiffany are both really good friends of mine. If it were up to me, Tiffany would be in charge of all of this, and I would never think about it again, and I would just say, go talk to Tiffany. But you all have been very patient with me and allowed me to be myself inside of this process, because I don't hold the same position as any of them. I just don't. I can't quite get there. But I'm trying very hard to find a way to get the balance. And I also appreciate that many of you, including Malachi, have said that you acknowledge that me as a person, and actually Rob has said this to me too, as a person on this dais, I do represent a group that is not in your stakeholders group. A big chunk of people out in the city of Sacramento who are worried about this, worried about it being next to a school, worried about it being next to a park. You know, I spent as did Councilmember Hansen, we spent a big chunk of our time, and several of us over the last couple of years, working with an all African-American women group to knock down tobacco, because over a span of time, it just started to target kids and was a really big problem. And we won some really big things to get rid of, flavored vapes. And the mom in me wonders, are we setting this up again? Is this 10 years from now gonna be that again? And we're gonna have to go back into disproportionate neighborhoods and say, oh my God, what did we do? And try to fix it. So I'm trying to manage all of those worries inside of myself. And so my first comment is just thank you for giving me the space to do that inside of this process and recognizing that it's challenging for me. In business in general, caps are a bad thing because you want the market to determine how much you need. However, this market is so new and there's all these weird ramifications that like the county's not in, and we're the only ones playing in our general area, which creates a bit of a disadvantage, and also holes, because like my district has 2 really big holes in it that are the county. So a lot of times people come out to me and say, hey, I found the perfect spot in your district, and then you're like, well, it's not in my district, that's in the county, and they're not in this game yet, so it's a problem. And the parts that are in the city in my district are extremely residential. I just don't have and it was designed as such that the shopping centers would be in the residential communities. It just doesn't look like, and those of you who come to North Natomas know this, it doesn't really look like or feel like anywhere else in the city except for maybe the Pocket. They kind of look and feel the same, although built at different times. But it doesn't have the same type of division that sort of old planning used to have. And so it just has to be taken into consideration. Doesn't mean there's no spot, but it does make it extra challenging. So that's the primer for me. I would not be in favor of lifting the cap at all for any other reason than core. There is no reason for us to change the cap just to add more marijuana for the sake of adding more marijuana storefronts in the city of Sacramento. And Councilmember Carr and I are usually on the same wavelength, but this one's a little hard for me to get there, Councilmember Carr. 30 is like I almost had a heart attack and died when he said it, but I managed. I can get behind the mayor's proposal to do 5 right now, and I think that's probably not enough, but I do think if we start with 5 with a plan to follow quickly with something more, that makes some sense to me, and I could probably convince myself to do it, I hope. That's my commitment to you, is that I will try my best. But I do have to say that in order for me to do that, I really need us to stick with the original guidelines that we passed around 600 feet from schools and not by daycare centers and but that's really important for somebody like me to be able to go back to my community and say, hey, that 2 years that we spent making sure this wouldn't be next to youth-sensitive uses, that wasn't for nothing. That's not going out the window. It's staying in place. We're just trying to find our balance. So that's important to me, right, in terms of my feedback to this. In order for me to push myself to 5 or 10 or whatever we're gonna do over a period of time, it's important that I be able to tell the people out in the community that we're sticking to our promises here about protecting kids and parks and things like that. I appreciate what the mayor said about, his number one thing was to get core. My number one thing is to clean up our reputation around cannabis in the city of Sacramento. It's hard. The Bee has written a whole series on us, and it isn't pretty, right? I mean, it's hard that we're sitting here talking about more storefronts when it's only been a couple of months since we had how Sacramento failed to monitor its cannabis storefronts as FBI steps in on the front page of the Bee. I just want to make sure we have fixed that before we add more storefronts. We can't ignore it. You can't ignore the fact that the research was done over months and months and months of time, and our system was not working. Malachi, I told you this on the first day that you brought CORE forward. I said, I'm with you. It's not going to work because everybody is in line in front of you. There's 30 businesses or whatever it is in front, and nobody moving CORE participants to the front of the line. If we would have fought harder on that front end, maybe we wouldn't be now trying to figure out how to do 60 dispensaries to find equity. We should, you know. And so I don't want to rush into something again when we're clearly not doing it well now, or at least, let's be kind, there's lots of room for improvement, right? We're trying. We are being brave. Several of you noted that. Hey, Sacramento, thanks for being brave. We are. But, you know, we also have to be careful and cautious, and we need to be trusted. We need the community to say, hey, the city is going to go back and fix this. We don't need the FBI and everybody else to come in and tell the city that it all went wrong. And by the way, this is how people like this young man in the back row who broke no California laws ends up in a federal institution. That's the world we live in right now. And I know it's dumb. There's nobody here that doesn't think that's dumb. If we could make it so you could bank, God, that would be so great, right? We'll get there. The country will get there, but they're not there yet. And so how do we help him? That's not fair. And, you know, Davina, welcome. We need you. Glad you're here. I hope somebody will speak to him. What's your name? Brian. Davina, would you talk to Brian? And maybe, Susanna, could you talk to Brian? That is grossly unfair. He had a business with us. The federal government intervened. If that's all that happened there, and then he now can't get his license, that's not fair. That's not right. It shouldn't happen. And to anybody that happened to, I would say the same thing. If this is an issue of federal versus state law, the guy needs our help. This is the second time he's been here, standing at the podium, fighting back tears, telling us his personal story. I want somebody to talk to him. So, city manager, can you make sure that happens, please, today? And I am also, my number 2 priority would be no monopolies. I don't want to read about the Ukraine and Mayor Giuliani and all of that in our Sacramento Bee as it relates to Sacramento. And I don't understand how one person somehow came back with 7 or 5 or whatever the hell they have when we very clearly, every member of this dais said that's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen. We all said we didn't want that. And it happened anyway. So, you know, we can't allow that to happen. If you look at those numbers, there's your core numbers. We wouldn't have to lift a cap at all. All of the ones that were monopolized could have just gone to women and minority-owned businesses. And that is a problem for me in particular, because I think if we're going to move forward on a tough topic, at least it's tough for me. It's not tough for everybody, it's tough for me. We at least need to be a trusted entity. Okay, and the way we be a trusted entity is we add an auditor. So good on the mayor for adding that piece in. I love the idea that some of you brought in about an equity manager. We do have a citywide equity manager. Maybe it's enough to just have that person engaging more in the cannabis division. I don't know, but come back and tell us. She's really good at her job, so maybe if we got her involved in this, that would be helpful. If we need an additional position, maybe she'll tell us that, hey, this is outside of my scope, or maybe she can do it. I don't know, but that's a great idea too. I also fear that sometimes women get lost in the mix. We talk about core, and then we say we want, you know, people, minorities or people that have been disadvantaged. There is no group more disadvantaged in less ownership than women, especially women of color. So we got to figure out how to lift that up too, and not just act like, you know, everything is hunky-dory. That would be my 2 cents, Mayor. I think I can get behind your proposal for now, as long as we stay true to our word on the city code. And
Assuming my proposal doesn't change in the next few minutes.
yeah, if
Because I've
your
had the
proposal
benefit
doesn't
of
change to
listening
30
to all
in the
the
next
input from the
few minutes.
public and my colleagues
Sure.
here.
Well, we're not voting. We're not voting tonight. It'll come back with lots of council input, and everybody's getting their input. I guess my point to the group is I want to help remedy some of this, but I don't want to help remedy this without knowing that we are the trusted entity that we should be in oversight of cannabis, and that we have addressed our issues, and that we acknowledge that we made mistakes and not just shake our heads like, no, we didn't do anything wrong. We certainly did. You don't get this on accident. We did not do a great job. That's okay. Sometimes even the city needs to learn, especially in new territory. And we have a brand new person on, and everybody speaks very highly of you. So fresh start, you have a great team. We can definitely do this. We just have to make sure we do it in the right order and not cart before the horse, which is clearly what we have done in the past and has led us to an unjust and unfair place. So that's my 2 cents, Mayor. My biggest ask is that we stick to these rules that we originally adopted on where things can go. Even if we add other areas, that we still leave the council call-out procedure in there, that we still respect neighborhoods and schools and parks and sensitive uses in place that makes people very nervous. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Hanson. 20 seconds, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have heard a lot of great testimony from the public and great comments from our colleagues. I think that from my standpoint, there's no doubt that the core applicants should come first. I think not just with new licenses, but with any turnover of existing licenses. So as staff works on that, I think, you know, that helps get to Mr. Carr's point about the existing 30. I'm fine with the shopping center zone. One of the things, I went and recounted because I couldn't remember, but just in the central city, we have 8 licenses, plus 2 right adjacent. And so I know everybody wants to be in District 4. You're all welcome in District 4. We have a lot of non-storefronts in District 4, but I'd also encourage you to look at the districts who don't have any access to cannabis, because those neighborhoods, maybe the council member doesn't want them, maybe the neighborhood doesn't want them, but I don't think all the licenses should be in 2, 6, and 4, 2, 4, and 6. And so as we work on this policy, I do think geographic distribution is one of the things that I care about. We get a lot of speculation, and you saw this with the cultivation, where people will just buy or try to lease storefronts, and we already have small businesses struggling. People saw some of our restaurants have gone out of business because landlords are raising rent, and if landlords think that there's going to be a cannabis rush, they will push out small businesses that are struggling to survive, and I don't think anybody here wants that. And so I just want to make sure that we manage this process well. And that's the key to how we transition from where we are at 30 to some other number. I was very comfortable with the 5 number. I think if we add more than that, I think we should find a way to phase it. If it's 18 months or over 24 months, maybe they come in sooner, maybe they come later. But I think it's just a question of, I hear from our dispensaries that competition from non-storefront and illegal is really killing them. And the competition isn't the question, and I hear people saying competition is the answer, but the non-storefront dispensaries have really taken away a lot of business, understandably. You know, if I can get Postmates, why do I want to wait in line at a restaurant, right? Somebody's gonna do the work for me. Those of you who might be hungry because it's almost dinner time, I encourage you to patronize some of our other great restaurants who might be struggling, and you can order your Postmates and have it delivered home before you get there. But that's one key, is how we phase it in, how we do those licenses. 5 is kind of a no-brainer for me, directly to the core applicants. And then as staff work on this, taking in all the conversations, I'm okay if we get to 10. I think how we get there without undermining the dispensaries that have made significant capital investments while still supporting the core applicants, because we don't want them to take out loans or acquire equity only to see the non-storefront licenses, which are not capped, take their business. And I want to be very thoughtful about that. On ownership, 10 years, 51%, that sounds pretty good to me. I heard many people say that. There's probably no magic number there, but I think something that ensures that the core applicants retain ownership, retain control, and don't have folks try to take advantage of them through a lot of different business practices or other things is probably smart. There was one other thing I was gonna try. I'm trying to do this fast, Mayor, because you gave me 20 seconds. Cap, eligibility, core, yep. I'm just flipping here. Location, like I said, I'm okay too with giving extensions on CUPs that might be close to expiring. And if those CUPs become available for core applicants, that's even better on those sites. I think that some of the challenges we're having And I did, I worked a lot on the tobacco and the vaping stuff because we are having low-income communities targeted by some of those purveyors. But I think if we can find ways to co-locate businesses, I don't know if state law allows that, but you're saying they don't. Manufacturing, micro businesses, I think that.
Only manufacturer is okay by state law.
Okay.
We need help at the state level if we want to co-locate.
Well, let's work on that. Let's do co-location. Let's get help at the state level to make sure that we're not creating these standalone businesses that, could be gouged by or have their market gouged by other people. I think otherwise, I'm generally very proud of what the Urban League and the Asian Chamber have done with the core program. When Councilmember Chenier championed it, we weren't really sure exactly how it was going to go, but I wanted to be there to help make sure that the money was invested, that people were able to take advantage of the program and get into the business. And I think we've been overwhelmingly successful judging by the people in the room. And so, Councilmember Chenier, you should be applauded. Our staff, Davina, you're inheriting a great program. And despite some of the challenges that we've had with ownership of storefronts, I think largely the future is bright, and we're just going to have to continue to work together to make it better. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilman Carr, and then I'm going to make the final comment here.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll be brief. The overconcentration of any cannabis activity in any district is subject to council approval. The only way you can overconcentrate is for the council member not to call it up or not convince the other council members that it shouldn't be in the area. So I don't really think that that's an issue. And all of the council members at one time or another have said that if you don't think this particular activity belongs in your district, we will not force it in. That hasn't been universally done, but most of the time that's what happens. So I was happy to hear the staffing issue clarified, that it's easy to staff up for 10. Here's the thing for me, though. If you went through the core program and you are a grower, and the current 30 dispensaries will not take your product, then you have a problem. If we increase that number to 3, that means you only have 14% of the dispensaries that you can market to. Even if we increase it to 10, that's 25%. You have only 25% of the market that you can market to. It seems like we're trying to drive the core people out of business by not giving them a way to market their product. So, I mean, either we tell you to go home, you can't do this, this is not working, or we give you an opportunity to market the products that you're producing. And with 3 dispensaries, it definitely does not do that. You only have 14% of the people you can market to. Even with 25% is doubtful. If I could only sell my products to 25% of the 7-Elevens, I think I might go out of business. So we're really handicapping our core businesses, especially when staff has already indicated that they can handle 10 more licenses. So the fact that we've allowed the monopoly to go on for so long, the fact that we are really not curing the problem even with 10, and I have to settle for 10. I would rather have no cap or 30, but I'll settle for 10. But even at 10, I don't know if we're allowing our core participants to survive. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, first of all, I wanted to respond a little bit about the council call-up, because this is one of the issues that I strongly pushed and wrote inside the ordinance, was to be able to control districts. But even if a council member has that authority, I think it would be disingenuous for any of our applicants if they start going through the path to get to that point. If you have to use the council call-up, you've already spent a lot of time going through the CUP process, time, access to the property or whatnot. I mean, we should be realistic about what is available, so that folks don't fall into that situation. And I mean, if we're getting to the council call, I mean, things have gone really bad at some point. So I don't want to rely on that as being the stopgap. The stopgap should be really, what is our capacity? And even though the staff said, hey, we can manage 10 here, I'd like to know as we move through the process, because I know it's almost dinner time, Mr. Mayor, what is that in reference to also managing permits for manufacturing? What is that in reference to the staff time managing to cultivation, to non-storefront dispensaries, to the transportation? This industry is not just dispensaries. And when it comes to competition, I think I want to also echo what Councilmember Hansen mentioned, is that the competition of non-storefront retail and also the illegal market is one that we have to actually monitor. So actually, if we want our core participants to be successful, we've got to look at a couple of those other areas. Except for a few small areas in the city, there aren't any restrictions or caps on non-storefront retail. So that's still an option. I mean, so I want to make sure that we put that. Lastly, on the enforcement side, because I think the illegal enforcement is critical, I do want to take this time to thank our staff on the issue of enforcement on all sectors of this industry, including the ones in the illegal grow houses. And I want to take this opportunity to also thank and do a shout out for Habitat for Humanity, who's helped us with a wonderful program to help families who have been homeless and needing a place to live, and being able to mitigate old grow houses and having them to become a productive place in the community. I know it's a benefit for us. But with that, I want to end up in that note, Mr. Mayor, because we did put 2 new families right before Christmas in a new home in a place that was a blight for the neighborhood. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, I want to make a couple of points before I get to the cap issue. Councilmember Ashby makes a very good point about the need to make sure, as we expand, that we are addressing some of the clearly reported and audited problems in our existing cannabis program. That's the reason why I did bring forward, and it's on consent, I know, but I think it may be as important as anything else we bring forward today, and that is the independent auditor, to make sure that we've got daily oversight over the program. And Davina, welcome. I look forward to meeting you and working with you. This person out of the auditor's office is going to be both your work partner, I suppose, but also is going to have some separation from you in your office for good reasons, having nothing to do with you, having to do with the institutional roles here, to raise the red flag before our good reporter to be has to bring it to our attention, or before the state auditor, the city auditor at the end of the year tells us about a problem that occurred 9 months earlier, no more. So I'm confident, Councilmember Ashby and members of the public, that we are beginning to build the checks and balances that will ensure that if there is an overconcentration problem that raises eyebrows, that we know about it and we can act, either with urgency about an individual business, or to make a quick policy change as necessary. I also want to ask, we get caught here in the conflict, if you will, between moving fast, which the public and especially the core leadership expects, and the complexity of some of the issues and the opportunities to develop new models of ownership that might solve some of the problems. That's why I'm very appreciative of Pat and the Asian Chamber and Rob and the work that you have done to begin to develop a master licensing strategy. And so I would like to see some urgency behind whatever stakeholder process is necessary to vet that to look at it and to bring that forward with the next round of whatever we have going. And to make up for that, because that added work, I want to suggest a simple approach to how we do the cap and all the other issues, because I don't know whether 51%, for example, ownership for a core participant is exactly right. I don't know whether 10 years of ownership is exactly right, but I got to tell you, it's a pretty good proxy and a pretty good start for now. My main job around here, I have many main jobs, but one of them is to be chief vote counter and bottle washer here. So I've been listening. 30, 10, 3, 5 and 5, 5, 10 at a minimum, 30. No, Alan Warren, 10 at a minimum, 30 maximum, and Jeff? And Jeff was 3. So, envelope, please. No, I mean, there's no appropriate way to do this, but I think then I am, and you do have these market questions, which Jay and Jeff Harris and others have raised about being able to handle it. This is the way I think we should do it. I think we should do 5 and 5. That's what I think we should do. And it's 10. That's 10. Thank you, Steve. I think it's, I was thinking it before you even said it, but I think we should do, we should commit to 10, but it should be 5 and 5.
Did you take the adjusted mean average to get this weighted?
I think that's reasonable. And by the way, the advantage of doing it in a staged fashion like that is it gives us a chance at a look back after 6 months and after 12 months. And that if we've only got 2, well, then we're not getting to 10. If we've got 8 real good ones in year 1 that are waiting, maybe we can move up the timeline. But I think that's a commitment to 10. 5 a year, 5 and 5, but 10 in total. And again, we can adjust that upward if the market and we've got enough participants that are really ready to start the robust businesses. I think we go at the 51% and the 10 years for now, but we really work hard on this master leasing issue and see if there's a way we can look at this all very differently. We're not voting today, but as I listen to everybody, I think that's a fair way to approach this. But it'll be up to the council when it comes back. That's a recommendation that I would suggest. Yes,
Mr. Mayor, and I think the cap in itself is not the issue. I mean, I think part of it is in reference to the city. So I mean, I think part of it as we move forward, it has to be with zoning, because that becomes the challenge.
Yes.
And geography. I mean, those are the
other key elements. So would you be ready in March, let me ask you this, to come back with a geographical concentration recommendation to us? What's the timeliness of that?
It's a planning and an attorney issue in defining undue concentration.
Okay.
And it is a finding that we would have to make in order to deny a permit in a particular geographic zone. So I'm going to leave it to the planning and the attorneys to.
I want to do a shout out for Councilman Guetta here, who's dealing, in his district, by the way, happens to be my former district, who's dealing with a perceived and a real concentration issue. So as we come back with the 5 and 5, which I think is a reasonable way to do this, we've got to at least address that issue for his district here. And that's what I would suggest. If we're going to do what we've done on homelessness and everything else, come together with a 9-0 vote and a clear council consensus. Okay? Okay. Thank you. We're done. Thank you all very much. Okay? We have item 7. Can I get a motion and a second? Moved and seconded. Any public testimony on item 7? No? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. That measure passes. We now move to council ideas and questions and public testimony on items not on the agenda. Thank you.
7.
Okay, let's go to public, I can't do it right now, ma'am. We're still in the middle of the meeting, okay? We're still in the meeting. I'm happy to come down and talk to you right after, okay? Thank you. Okay.
So I have 7 speakers for public comment, matters not on the agenda.
Hold on a second, Madam Clerk. If everyone could please exit the chambers quietly, we'd appreciate it. We still have a little bit more business to go. Okay. Still a little bit more business to go. All right, let's go with the public testimony on items not on the agenda.
The first speaker is Robert Copeland, then Rosario Dowling, then Robin Moore, then Kevin Carter. I don't see Mr. Copeland.
Okay.
Rosario Dowling.
Rosario Dowling. Is Rosario Dowling here? Hi.
Thank you. Following Rosario is Robin Moore, then Kevin Carter.
Again, I'm sorry, if we could just ask people to please proceed out quietly, I'd sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, good
Yes.
evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I did want to come earlier and speak on behalf of Compassion Village, but I want to advocate specifically for the reentry population. I run a nonprofit for male youth at risk of delinquency, in or at risk of delinquency. And one of our young men who entered society recently was actually housed at Compassion Village. I would differ with Ms. Ashby's comment about it not being amazing. What's amazing about Compassion Village was they were there, they were available, and they held the place for our youngster. What's amazing also is that he will be celebrating 2 years in the community, 2 jobs, just purchased a new car, and is doing fantastic. And so there are many in the community that are doing some amazing work. As my nonprofit is very young, it's only 5 years old, there are many pieces in the community that help the larger picture. And so I would encourage you, if you are looking at other models, and Compassion Village doesn't seem to really fit everybody's idea of what it should be, it's still there and it should be funded. The city should do the right thing and help fund it, because it takes everybody in the community to help in some way. And so it is a little bit of a demotivator to hear someone speak down about the program, when in fact I personally know and champion our youth, whether in juvenile court, adult court, and transition support for them as well back into the community. And so when you see lives changed, when you see people become family.
To be clear, I said the program was amazing, not
You
amazing.
said not amazing. It's not amazing.
He said amazing.
That's
No,
okay.
I said it's amazing, and we learned from it, and we're replicating it.
And that's great. But I also think that there are different ways of there are plenty of homeless individuals in our community. There's enough for everybody to help. And so definitely with programs that are available already, please help fund them so that we can continue.
Thank you for comments. Your time is complete.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Robin Moore, Antone Butler, Diana Butler, and John Holden. Are any
Okay,
of those
who's here?
people here?
No, who, name again, go ahead.
And Robin, Antone,
Is Robin
Diana, or
Antonet
John
here?
Holden? Are you John Holden?
What's your name, sir? Yes.
Antoine Butler.
Okay. Come on up. We'd like you to.
After or before?
Right now.
Right now. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you.
I just wanted to touch bases on, I didn't get a chance to hear nothing about the homeless being late, and I don't know if the city's in chaos or not, but if they could just help us out-of-towners be more civilized, because I don't like not taking showers, and I got 2 minutes to say a lot. About the cannabis situation, I didn't even know that was on the ballot. We was involved in that back in '94. I don't understand why people are getting involved in the we want this, we want that attitude when it was what they call it, it was a ship that wasn't even broken, because I heard from other people talking about it. It was a ship that wasn't even broken. So they say if it don't need to be broken, don't fix it. I got a whole lot of minutes, I got a whole lot of time. So the homeless situation, I didn't get a chance to address that, no, I'm on camera. The cannabis situation, that's kind of hitting us off guard, because back in '94, we did the North American Free Trade Agreement. I'm not even understanding if we're even legal being able to talk about that right now. And then my situation about what I want to do is on the recycles, instead of talking about the homeless and the, what they call that, the cannabis. I'm a working man here in America, and I feel like I should be able to work what they say in the Christianity sense, a man that does not work does not eat. I'm trying to work, so please keep on letting us work out here. I'm a youth leader out of St. Louis area. My name's Antoine Butler, and I support the California recycle company that's going to go out there to North St. Louis.
Thank you.
For your time. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't believe Diana Butler or John Holden.
Okay,
So I have
next.
no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's nothing else to come before the city council, we are adjourned. Sorry? You're John Holden, sorry.
Mr. Holden?
Mr. Mayor, city council members that are still here, I didn't know that the meeting was earlier today, so. 5 months ago, Mr. Mayor, you invited me and my group to speak on trying to really make a change in the homelessness situation. And you promised me to stop us from speaking of the elements that break down the system so we understand we need to have a transformational facility in place as part of this helping the now epidemic. Was a problem, there's an epidemic, now it's going to be a pandemic if we don't do something to transition people out of homelessness. You promised me you're going to go down to San Antonio and go see Haven for Hope. Have you done that?
No, I have not, sir. I've been rather busy with chairing the governor's task force and leading our city, but I will, I promise you.
So just so that you know, 3 members of the Board of Supervisors for the county have gone. And they're on board with us to make this happen. The problem is, as in today with the governor speaking about the excess money that hasn't been spent because the mental health money goes all to the counties, and now he's trying to take that money away. The reason that it hasn't encompassed, we need the village concept of the County Board of Supervisors and the City Council to work together for transitioning people out of homeless. It's not about just housing people. That's just taking the pressure off of the powers that be, understanding that they're under pressure because people are everywhere. The money we've spent, rebuilding the convention center again, over $200 million, could have built this facility. My concerns is that we're gonna have this beautiful glass structures and we're gonna have bodies laying around it. We can't get a housing in place issue because of the courts. But Haven for Hope has transitioned 6,500 people out of homelessness.
Thank you for your comments. Your
and
time is
that's
complete.
the direction to get this out of a problem.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, sir.
And our final speaker this evening is Diana Butler.
Good afternoon, City Council. I'm all for you opening storefront cannabis, but my problem is I'm in trouble now. I have recently been to court for being abused from someone who was using cannabis. The landlord has given me a $30 notice. I'm physically disabled. I've tried your homeless programs. I've tried your group home. I want to know, where do I go to keep off the streets? Something should be in place to help me. A motel voucher or something. I'm all for your program, but where does somebody go that gets hurt by these people that are using cannabis? I haven't heard anything about that are being abused by these programs. I haven't heard anything about that. And I'm all for a big business or a little business taken up, but somebody has to help the people that's getting abused by these programs.
Are you unsheltered, ma'am? Huh? Are you unsheltered currently?
No, they will not take me and my service dog.
No. Are you under?
I have paperwork.
Are you under a roof? Are you living in a shelter or? Where are you sleeping?
Tonight I may sleep on the streets, me and my service dog. I've been to the police. I have court papers. I have restraining orders, and I'm afraid to even go into my own home because of the cannabis going on there.
We have Mr. Conlon again back there, Assistant City Manager and Case Manager, who will talk to you and see if we can look at some of your paperwork and see if we might help you, okay? Thank you very much. Nothing else to come before the City Council. We're adjourned. Thank you.